streaming. Let's check out our studio and see if it connects. Says that we have an excellent connection. Let's see if image crops up. And then we're going to basically confirm that by going over to YouTube and basically checking out our home channel. After which we hear myself speak with a confirmation. Everybody put in your upvotes, say how much you like this, and we will now conduct our call. All right, so says we're now live. We've got an email confirmation. Let's follow that up with our call to our dear friend, Mr. Aristides. Let's see if I can find him on my roster, and then we basically conduct this call. Here we are. Okay, let's see if he answers. Right now you're going to hear the ringing. And there we are, dear sir. Okay, how are you?
I'm okay, all right.
Good, you ready for a little bit of monologue there? I mean, you know, blurb.
Yep, just a moment.
Yes. And I'll go straight into the monologue when you're done. And we won't be too long tonight because obviously there's no Meals on Wheels delivery tomorrow. There's no need for me to wait for it. So it won't be too long after monologue closes tonight that I'll take a small rest before being on my way. So,
right.
Yeah. And
all right.
Yeah. And then we'll see how available I'll be for the weekend, which probably won't be much. But at any rate, we definitely might find a bit of time to talk on privately. I guess on the just before the Sunday night transmission. So I'll be back for the Sunday night transmission.
At some rate, we will catch up.
Yeah.
After now and before that.
Yeah.
Before. All right. Let me do this. I'll click on the handy pop-up there, which we'll get to.
Yes.
But first, these days, trying to lead off the blurb with the urging to support Douglas, not just with your continued listenership, but with your financial support. And you can do that on PayPal. And if nobody does that, Douglas can't really keep doing this. So if you're here and you appreciate it, please consider contributing whatever you are able this time, or perhaps in a recurring donation monthly if you can afford it. You can find him on PayPal. All you really have to do is remember he's on PayPal and his name. Although we will put the link in the chat here. You don't need the link to find him there. You should be able to go there and search him either by his name, which you should find him in his charming little image there with the hat and glasses, and make sure it's an Asian looking guy and not another Douglas Diedrich, or type Douglas D. Diedrich that you see right there on the front thumbnail poster up in the corner there. You can search for him with that, and that will for sure get you to the right place, or the link that is just going to the chat just now. We'll try to keep that link there, but not having the link is not an excuse. You can find him there anytime. You're just sitting there, you're like, what am I going to do with this extra money? Or my girlfriend just dumped me. I was about to buy her a present. You know what? Instead, I think I'll send Douglas Diedrich a donation. And so
that's delightful.
Spur of the moment, or whatever. Just fire it off.
But
he needs it now.
By the way, while you're doing the blurb, I'm just going to rinse this wanker out of my eye. I'll be right back, and I'll let you know as soon as I'm back. Okay, so keep on rolling. Thank you.
All right. So, financial support is necessary. This is his official job, actually. That is the understanding of the program, the Working Disabled program he is on. He does get assistance, but not full assistance. It is understood that he does still work and provide some type of income for himself, and benefit to society, presumably, although we know he does. Please do contribute. So enough there. Perhaps as soon as you show up, though, please hit that thumbs up upvote. That's really important, not just to show your support and have a cool big number there, but because that affects the algorithm. And what else affects the algorithm is the downvotes that are placed are never shown by YouTube these days, but there are those that place downvotes there by whatever means or in however many numbers, and that skews the algorithm down. That makes it harder for people to find him either on purpose or by a happy accident, whether searching for certain types of content or the likelihood of being shown in suggested content, such as the sidebar, such as you might see on the PC, etc. So, the algorithm rules all these days. That is until, you get banned and deleted, but hopefully it doesn't happen to any of the shows. So yeah, please hit the thumbs up there. You also want to make sure you are subscribed. You'll like and subscribe. If that is not visible underneath the program window in a button, if you go to his main channel, don't click there without opening a new window. But if you go to his main channel right there on the left versus Douglas Dietrich in blue, I presume that would be a link to his channel. Go there at some point, but stay with us right now. And there you should find a button that says subscribed, or where you can subscribe. Make sure you are, even if you have in the past. Please check that on occasion to make sure you've not somehow mysteriously become unsubscribed. That does happen. So do that. And then if you see the little bell button, that is the notification bell, turn that on. That will provide a handy pop-up. Even I use that. So you don't have to remember, show's starting, to set your own reminder. It does it for you.
Yes, I'm back.
A little pop-up. You can just click on that, and here you are. That is very handy. So do all those things. Also, and no doubt all those things help the algorithm as well as those. Perhaps there's a share button. I think if you click that, it'll generate a link you can share with people, or you can copy it right out of the browser. But you know what? Maybe we'll start telling people, if anything, that might be better, because they don't know you copied the link out of the browser thing, but they know you hit the share thing, and that tells the algorithm that it has been shared. Maybe that it is important if more people share it. So hit that share button, generate a link there to send to people. You might see a button there or not. It says clip. On the PC it is. I don't think I saw it on the phone. That allows you to chop, I think, like a 1 minute or so clip out and kind of produce it yourself. I think it'll come with your name on it, but it should link to his channel if you want to send somebody a little teaser to get them there. Another way, at least on the PC, is during the replay, which is not now, which is after the live is done, it becomes like a regular video. You can right-click there and generate a link at a certain timestamp if you want to direct people to the content at that certain time. If you're listening at that point, you find it interesting, you want to share that point in time. Also, during the replay, you can, that is when comments are enabled underneath the program window. It's not now, and that is different than the live chat, which you might see now, which might be replayed during the replay. But afterwards, there will be comments underneath the window, and Douglas will put a pinned comment there with crucial information. If you happen to be around at that stage and you're listening after the fact, please like his comment and any other positive comments, and please feel free to leave your own. All these things will tell YouTube that this content is engaging and popular and needs to be uprated in the algorithm. So please do consider all those things. To do these things, you need to be signed into YouTube. Unfortunately, you can't just do them anonymously. To accomplish that, if you have any a Gmail, you can natively sign in or into YouTube with that, because it's a Google product now. Or create an account if you don't have one, or any other way. If you have a Gmail lying around, that's the easiest thing. And so please, one way or another, get signed in to YouTube so you can do these engagements, and this will probably help you in other ways with content that you care about. So once you do that, you can create a little avatar icon or whatever you want there for your account. And then underneath your account, you can create sub channels. You don't have to do this. You have to do that, I guess, if you want to publish anything. Also, you can just create channels and not publish anything, just kind of have them as placeholders. And the cool thing is, if you have sub channels under your account, each of them can do its own upvoting. So if you do that, and then underneath that little menu, it'll say have a thing that says switch account or similar. I just did that, so it's now I can upvote again. So one person, and this isn't democracy where one person has one vote. We need one person more than one vote, and that's okay here. And so please consider doing that as well. And also underneath that menu, you should find a setting for a restricted mode. Make sure that is off. If that is on, that may limit you from seeing or hearing content which is considered only for adults, either declared as such or labeled as such by YouTube. So we don't want to take any chances there. Make sure that that is off. Unless you are a child yourself, in that case, well, we have some bigger questions. But ask your parents. Ask your parents' permission. Of course, to take in the program. Hopefully, they are too. And, ask your parents' permission to send your allowance to Douglas instead, or instead send Douglas his own allowance through PayPal, as previously described. So yeah, please do check those settings. Familiarize yourself with the little menu there. What else? Well, also, each show has a title bar there. It's usually all the way filled up by to the 100-character max that it allows.
Yes.
And usually that is not enough for Douglas to express the things he wants to touch upon or commemorate in the program. So if you find the little description underneath, click more or show more, whatever it says, that'll break out into a longer description, and any asterisk in the title will then direct to a footnote there, which will give more detail on the things he wants to talk about or acknowledge. And he can get into more of that. What do we have there? So obviously, I assume topics today are going to have to do with Thanksgiving related issues. No Thanksgiving. That's cute. Yeah. These holidays. So I'm sure you'll have some things to say there. What else is in here? Yeah, well, mostly about that. I'm just kind of skimming through the Dietrich Haneke's.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. The key is just to keep moving and not really get bogged down, and it's just to kind of just to let it flow intuitively, and it'll just flow into your brain, and you'll take in what you need to there. So,
Yes.
right, it's a lot of different types of characters you're probably not used to seeing, but it's all very fascinating.
Thank you. You're such a wonderful person. You really are.
Yeah, don't be intimidated. In other words, don't look at me like, oh my God, what is that even saying? Just read through. You'll get the point. Right. That's the main things. Share it anywhere you can. Click the little share button there. Generate a link. Post it somewhere. Record it. Put it in a chat. Any way you can share that. Make up stickers or something. I don't know. What do you? who does that? I don't know, but you can. You can make QR codes. Tape that up. That'd be the modern. Phone number on the bathroom wall would be a QR code on the bathroom wall. But whatever it takes. We're not beneath that. If you want to put it in your favorite bathroom. Please do that. Probably better than the best content that you'll probably see there. So give them something else to aspire to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I want you to know how proud I am of you, of how you've been really just getting comfortable and making all of this work when we open up the show. I'm going to give us a chance to gather even more listeners by having you go on a bit more with whatever you think is relevant in the current events, either foreign or domestic, or even technical or scientific, that you feel we should
Okay.
be paying attention
All
to.
right. All right. I will try. Let me see what things, a little spot where I've kind of forward things that might be interesting to bring up here. I don't know if you ever covered. Sorry. It's not that you're boring. It's not that you're boring. At all. At all. No. I don't have to cover this last time, although it was around last time. Mysterious signals that an amateur astronomer discovered being emitted from SpaceX satellites. Have you heard of this? Or I'll put it first in the in our own chat, and then maybe in the general chat. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, apparently an amateur astronomer figured out SpaceX satellites were doing weird shit. Basically it. So what that means, I don't know. They were kind of transmitting low-key on restricted bands that they shouldn't have been. What that does, I don't know. What they're up to, I also don't know. It's probably not good. Probably not an accident. I believe these were the specially government contracted ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. It's we can only speculate. But what would be your own instinct?
Oh, well, hard to say. I'll have to read a little bit more. I put the link there. But they did say they might have a possibility to disrupt other equipment, other people's equipment, satellites or whatnot. I don't know if that is the intent or what. So, but you figure if they caused enough trouble, it would kind of be counterproductive to them. You know, to go around interfering too much. You know,
You would
if you're gonna do
hope.
something sneaky. Yeah, if you're gonna do something sneaky, you don't want to be too obvious about it. So, the unusual radio frequencies in the 2025 to 2110 megahertz range, being emitted by at least 170 of SpaceX's defense satellites. Found it by accident.
By the way, Brendan's contribution is it's probably child porn.
Or wait, or Sammy wrote that.
Oh, Sammy wrote that. Okay, Sammy wrote down.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Sammy. So
Yeah,
sorry,
well,
Sammy.
Still valid, right? Yeah. That is how they're now right. They don't have to, mail around old hard drives now. They can just, pump it over SpaceX satellites. All right. SpaceX's Starshield constellation of Starlink satellites, which is part of the $1.8 billion contract with the DoD, to launch capability to support national security efforts. So, okay, that's what they're doing. It's like everything's contracted now. Nobody, it's not even their own government doesn't even have its own equipment up in space now. It's just.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's insane,
Yeah.
and it will be the end of us. It will be the end of the the world as we know it. So all that being said, you're doing a great job. Keep doing that. I'm just getting my thoughts together before I dive into it.
Yeah.
And
okay, I'm just kind of scanning this one brief article that I posted from Futures, and there are other articles about it out there. If anybody just searches SpaceX satellites, mysterious signal, amateur astronomer, you'll probably find it. Should I put that? I don't know. I could put that over in the meet chat.
Sure. Yeah.
It's not too detailed here. Nearby satellites could receive interference and perhaps not respond properly to commands or ignore commands from. So I mean, maybe they could, if they wanted, it could be a jamming capability. I don't know. Perhaps.
Okay.
Maybe. Or maybe that would just be accidental.
The way
when I scroll to the bottom of this, where they're like, kind of directing you towards other content from this page. If you hear more, Elon Musk's drug use means he isn't allowed to enter certain SpaceX buildings. That's funny. Maybe with an escort,
yeah, adult supervision in effect.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's hilarious. To think that he couldn't, right?
Yeah, in his own company.
Sorry, Mr. Musk, but can't enter.
Yeah,
It's the rules.
I hope they're enforcing that. Yeah, but they probably don't. It's probably just.
I gotta click on. I gotta see if that ever happens. So let me see. I'll try. All right, now I'm clicking on that one. Long rumored ketamine LSD could be an issue if the CEO replied for higher security clearance than his current top secret. You mean above top secret?
Yes.
Which allows him to see some. As a result, Musk isn't able. Like, I wonder if this is speculative or he actually can't. Okay. Roughly 400 SpaceX employees have permissions for sensitive, compartmented information. So more so than Musk might himself, but they also only give it to people who need it. So he doesn't need it because he's not actually doing any work. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Well, he smoked weed with Joe Rogan. That was 2018. Oh wait, here's his comeback. Musk, afraid to be left out, argued the highly classified information should be made public. Like, that's the way to get around it. I can't. Yeah, not allowed to see it because of the clearance. My drug. Well, if there's no clearance, then I can see it. Everybody. Yeah. Right. We don't want to give out exact instructions on how to make a nuclear bomb or something like that, but unless there's a genuine risk to the country, all the information in the government should be public. Great. Yeah. To the world, to China.
Yeah. That's that's our man. Yeah, that's Elon Musk, the man who people think is a genius. That's so why not that way with industrial espionage? Eliminate all industrial espionage by going info-socialist. We just share all of it.
That's info-socialist. There you go. Yeah. That's right. That's right. We're not spies. We're info-socialists.
Yes. But you're doing great. You're digging up dirt. I mean, this is stuff that's we need to hear.
Wait. There's more. Wait, click for more. Elon Musk drug use becoming a problem for government security. Yeah, 100. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's just kind of more on that. Okay, 6 lawyer, 10 higher security. Yeah. The lawyers there have told him not to attempt to have higher security clearances. What is he gonna do? He's not working. He's not gonna walk in. Just stand outside, give a press conference. And that's it. And it would also force him to disclose information about his frequent contacts, such as with foreign nationals, including Russian President Vladimir Putin.
There we are.
Yeah. So, we need to know about your drug use and all your friends, and that's how these things work. Yeah. He's like, no, all right, I'll stay outside. I just got a call. I realized I got to go. Never mind. It's funny you said Doji's no more, and you don't hear about that, right? Yeah, in with a bang, out with a whimper, right?
Yes, that's right. So I will speak to that.
Okay.
Yeah. As a former bureaucrat, that's actually on top of the news as far as I'm concerned. Anything else that comes up?
Let's see. Trump administration planning to drop requirement for Tesla to report self-driving crashes. No, you don't have to report that. All right. I don't know. So who's gonna get the crown of automated human disposal? Is it gonna be Tesla cars or Waymo? We'll never know because they don't have to report it.
Yes, that's right. Yes, stupid fucks. I mean, Jesus Christ, we live in a madhouse. This is like, it's as you said, it's become like Death Race, the old dystopian film,
Yeah,
uh,
death race. What was it called? It was death race something. What was it?
2000 or something. It was the
Yeah. Oh
year.
yeah.
Yeah, Death
I
Race.
think so. Yeah. Yeah. Wait.
Yeah, it's old. How do you even
Death
remember that?
race.
That was like when you
Death
were a
race
child.
2000
Yeah.
is the name.
Yeah.
I just remember the name. I don't remember the film too well, but now I'm going to refresh myself there. Yeah. So I need a new name, except for automated. You know, automated vehicles.
Okay, I'm going to dive into
All right.
monologue, and you've done wonderfully. Goddess bless you. Love you dearly, and this would not be possible without yourself. And we have in the chat we have I can't even read their name. Series of letters and numbers that might have some meaning to them. They're saying hi, DD. Mikey's place. He actually can't go to. Oh my God, not the drugs. By the way, the party got towed to a slog. Okay, whoever this is, very creative with their words and probably a bit tipsy and a bit messy for the holiday. It is, of course, to many Americans, quote unquote, Thanksgiving Eve Day. There's no thanks to be given if you're a Native American. And in case you haven't noticed, dear Aristides, the image embedded in a thumbnail of tonight's live stream, which I actually painted a long time ago, was moving enough to, what was her name? We'd have to get Sammy Romero. Sammy Romero, can you tell me the name of that Latin American lady who didn't recognize herself as a Latina, really? She thought of herself as white. And then Americans began calling her names after Trump came into office, and she was shocked by this. And I really can't remember her name now. But she was someone who took this as her icon. She took this painting and she made it her icon on Facebook, essentially. And in case anyone does not notice, it is an amalgam. On the right-hand side, the child is Native American. On the left-hand side, she's Palestinian. So it's simply a white settler regime imposing its horrors and atrocities upon the eternal victim, the child. And at any rate, yeah. Oh, this is Jackstar. Oh, well, welcome back, Jackstar. And love you dearly. Jackstar was always an incredible human being. And so welcome back aboard, Jackstar. And yeah, we appreciate you profoundly. You're always welcome here. And so all that being said, I want to credit Brooke Hagberg for contributing 100 United States dollars. Goddess bless her. And love you lots too, Jackstar. And maybe you can tell us exactly what the meaning of your new name is. Hugs, dear Jackstar. You're an incredible human being. And yeah, so the numbers are going up. So we open with our thanks to Brooke Hagberg, who has placed 100 United States dollars on auto payment. Something that I recommend everyone do. Emulate her example. She's the example to follow, and that'll keep me afloat. And our dear man, Mr. Jackstar, says that I'm very authentic and in my conveyance of my sentiments, and I appreciate that. And I thank you in return, dear Jackstar. So he says his name means Tower 206. Okay, so Tower 206. Thank you. Was that one of the 9/11 towers? If anyone remembers, they can tell me that. I will take a quick look before I start diving. By the way, Infinite Call Heather says hi. Wonderful. And welcome aboard, dear Heather. We love you dearly. Jackstar, or rather John Doe, has put in David Carradine, Death Race 2000. Our man Brendan has brought to our attention that 2 National Guardsmen have been shot, which I will open with that breaking news, of course, the developments therein. We have a wonderful photograph from Mr. T-Tank Berry. And aside from that, earlier Aristides entered the link that our SpaceX satellites are sending, potentially jamming signals. And of course, we have a incredible image, a photograph from John Doe. He's very good at finding these, of a Native American massacre by European Americans. Just heinous, and of course, just there's no words. It's unspeakable. It's an unspeakable act, and many of these unspeakable acts, well, all too many, countless unspeakable acts, happened like this throughout history. We have another link from Brendan Sogit here that says Putin's keep his health details confidential. Okay, Putin's Secret Service suitcase particularly transports his waste on foreign trips. Yes. Oh, okay. So that he's got a poop suitcase so that no one can analyze his poop for his health. Putin's security team brings along a poop suitcase on all his international trips, gathering his waste and transporting it back to Russia to keep his health details secret. There we are. Thank you for that. That's the link they need to go to, because obviously if his poop were analyzed, we would find all kinds of stem cell waste in it from all the stem cell injections that he gets to keep him going. All right, let me see if I can get back in there to give that a response. Yeah, this is I gave it the poop emoji. There we are. That's the appropriate response to that. Okay, with that, we thank Holly Kiefer for her link entered the other day about Nico Argento, the blood concierge. Nico Argento is a blood concierge. He basically relays or connects the stars, the celebrities, shares his secrets with Vanity Fair in an interview, an exclusive look into the booming blood industry, from stem cells to, of course, transfusion or parabioses thereby. And with that, we're going to just leave Infinite Call up so I can access that as needed. Check my... hey, say something else again, Aristides, just to make certain that everything you say was heard. I didn't even check it. Yeah, you registered. That, but... Yeah, all of that was registered. Okay. That, you registered. I didn't even bother to check whether or not you registered when you started, but obviously everybody heard you, or they would have told us when they heard nothing but blank air. But I just had to make sure. It's compulsion. It's a compulsion. So thank you for humoring me on that. With that, we're going to try and go back to my other screens. Let's see if the other screens are retrievable. And so there we go. By the way, somebody has sent me something. Oh, this is from some other really small dude. Anyhow, Brooke Hagberg contributed 100 United States dollars by auto payment. Everybody please emulate her model. At the absolute minimum, I will need a quarter of 100 United States dollars, or it's not going to be worth it for any of us. Any contributions below that are really not helpful at all, and they're rather offensive. Because I can't do anything with them. They really do not add up. I don't have the number of listeners where small contributions add up. It has to be a quarter of $100 at minimum, or you might as well not bother. Such being said, do bother and make it an auto payment, and that will help immensely. So we open with a breaking news alert. 2 soldiers of the West Virginia National Guard were shot near the White House this afternoon. Officials said the suspect of what they term a targeted attack is in custody, correcting their state's governor, Patrick Morrisey, who misconfirmed that 2 West Virginia National Guards members who were shot near the White House have died. The FBI Director, Kash Patel, and the District of Columbia Mayor, Muriel Bowser, have stated that the 2 West Virginia National Guards members shot near the White House are in quote-unquote critical condition. Bowser describing the incident as a targeted shooting, and Patel declaring that the case will be treated as an assault on a federal law enforcement officer. We follow with a public service announcement amid Native American Heritage Month with your First Nations Native Americano Indian Holocaust Memorial Day of Mourning forecast. Flu season has just begun, but doctors are already on high alert with a big temperature drop on the menu this No Thanksgiving. The No Thanksgiving travel rush is in full swing and could be the busiest in 15 years. So good luck out there, listeners. The flu is spreading earlier than usual in some parts of the country, prompting concerns that cases could erupt as millions of Americans travel and gather for No Thanksgiving and other upcoming holidays. The strain, which wreaked havoc in the United Kingdom and Canada already, is behind most flu cases so far in these United States, mostly affecting kids. While no pediatric deaths have yet been reported, the early uptick is unsettling for doctors who spent last winter watching the flu sweep through schools, daycare centers, and hospitals. And besides that, oh, by the way, we have an incoming. Drone airlifts farmer to safety. A drone lifted a stranded farmer to safety in Vietnam, where flooding has killed more than 100 people. And so why'd they bother with him? I mean, did they just suddenly like, oh wow, people are drowning, send a drone out? He must have been one small son of a bitch, or that's a really big fucking drone. That's okay. So Aristides, you're our engineer. What do you imagine a drone must be like to airlift a man to safety? That's impressive, and obviously they could have used 100 more such rescues at least. All right. It's yeah. Any thoughts on that?
A big drone. A big drone, obviously.
God damn. Thank you. Yes, there you go. And he confirmed my suspicion. Thank you, Aristides. And hopefully such drones are waiting for us in the United States. You know, Trump's got them ready for us whenever we need our help. He'll come send that drone for us, or Amazon will, and charge us so much that we wish he had left us there to die. You know, fuck you, Bezos. You know, I can't pay this bill. At any rate, it doesn't matter. Your credit will be ruined for the rest of your life, but at least you're alive. That's how America would work it. Now, Vietnam is theoretically communist. I'm sure they'll still ask for a hefty bribe from this poor guy, but, you know, theoretically they're not going to charge him because it's the people's drone and it's rescuing the people, the greatest asset of a communist nation, in theory. At any rate, judging by the way communist nations dispose of people, obviously theory is a lot different from practice. Again, when it comes to our weather that will exacerbate the flu season's here. I mean, let's just say that. We haven't got recorded pediatric deaths yet, but it's only a matter of time. And a potent winter storm will impact travel across much of the northern United States as millions hit the roads and skies for the First Nations Native Americano Indian Holocaust Memorial Day of Mourning. A cold plunge is already gripping the upper Midwest and northern Great Lakes, accompanied by strong winds. Winter storm and blizzard warnings are in effect for more than 5 million people in region, including Minneapolis, St. Paul. While this cold blast isn't the season's most extreme, it marks a sharp change from the sweater weather much of the country has enjoyed heading into the holiday week. And temperatures are also expected to run as much as 20 degrees below average for much of the central and eastern United States by No Thanksgiving Day amidst Native American Heritage Month. So you heard me said it. It's Native American Heritage Month throughout November, whereby we should all be exploring the identity, history, and the lived experiences of Native people today. Yes, this is where I'm at. Yes, he knows me all too fucking well. We've got our man Brendan Zoget has put it in a private call. He's welcome to put that in a public. Put that in the infinite call. Let others enjoy the horror of Dietrich's subsistence, where we've got $0.00 in the ATM, and Doug Dietrich, your favorite spud, your favorite couch potato, is standing in front of the ATM with nothing rolling out. At any rate, on behalf of Native American Heritage Month, Just a little detour, as is, well, basically my responsibility to all of you as a historian and as someone who educates. Oh, if anyone else is on the call and they wish to say something, by all means. And by the way, we should give other people some of the opportunity to join the call. So I'm going to just well, click on people, see if I can enter just a few more names here in case people want to come in, because they do provide. Obviously, it seems like our man Samuel Romero is in a mood. So, if he's a bit feisty tonight, he's welcome to come in and pop a few zingers. So it's going to be, oh, also Heather. Heather was in the chat, so she must be in a feisty mood. So we'll just click those three people. And Brendan said you got off easy. I was looking for a beggar gif. Yes, and yeah, believe me, it would have done just as well. No offense taken. That's essentially what I am. A difference here, more like a hobo. I earn my living, not through beggary, but through hard
Yo,
analysis. Yes, well, welcome aboard, dear Sammy. Hey, before I dive too
hey, how you
deeply,
doing?
yeah, before I dive too deeply into a kind of history lesson about Indian culture, let's hear from you about what you feel to be important for us to be thinking about and just let loose. Feel free to cathart, vent. First off, how are you doing? Is everybody okay?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. It's been a busy month for me, like I told you, but I've been doing good, man. It's just when I heard that guy discovered a satellite signal,
Yeah.
kind of reminded me of that asshole that said he was a janitor in Antarctica and they were beaming a signal to us to shop more. I don't know who that retard was,
I can't remember
and you
his
know what?
name. He wound up
But
attacking Marina Saren. Yeah, he wound up ambushing Marina Saren. Piece of shit. Yes, and yeah,
well,
I know exactly who you're talking about, but I can't remember his name either. Go on. Yeah.
right, but it's like a secret signal. Uh, Me being around government, and obviously you worked in government, nothing's secret.
Thank
Everything's
you.
just it's you just roll your eyes because it's like
Well,
uh
his
you
stupidity
go ahead.
was, if they're beaming message, if they're basically mind controlling us from Antarctica, how is he immune? That's question number one. And
Well,
yeah.
well, my question is, you're a janitor in Antarctica, and you have time to spy, on somebody that like really
Not only that, how
you
does
know,
he comprehend the technology he's perceiving as a custodian? Is he also an engineer?
like
Or a
don't you have
neurologist?
friends you want to go out after work and maybe you have a girlfriend that's an Eskimo, I don't know, an Inuit maybe. Um, you know what? The old ball and chain pulled up right now, so I have to go and do my daddy duties, but I'll be back. Okay, I'll
Of
I'll chime
course.
in a little bit later. Okay,
Yeah, stay
all right.
safe. We love you dearly. Bye for now. So that's Samuel Romero joined in for a little bit of time, and he's always welcome back. Yes, so let's do a little bit of Indians 201. For those of you unfamiliar, that's a deeper academic level, like second step from 101 in schooling. Let's talk about the Twa spirit. I'm obligated to do that because I do tutor young men who essentially fall into that category. Now, in American society today, there is some debate over gender and sexual identities. While there are some who feel that there are only twa genders, male and female, and that this should define the natural order of things, there are others who point out the wide variety of sexual orientation. To add to this discussion, I will elucidate upon some information about Native American gender identities. Indian cultures in general, and by that I mean Native American, did not view gender or sexuality as being restricted to just one categories. While some modern or postmodern writers speak of the Indian Burdesh or Twa spirit as a third gender, it's not quite that simple. Other identity names for this you may hear include androgynous. Androgyny can also be associated with being agendered, when an individual doth not identify as male or female and prefereth to not identify with any gender, or Twa, as in two, as in twin-spirited, a tradition in many First Nations of original peoples, idast the NAI, the Native American Indian tribes. There are a variety of definitions and feelings about the term twa binary spirits, twa or binary spirited, and binary, of course, means as in binary numeric, ones and zeros, which comprise the way computers see the world. If you were to be an android and see the world the way an android sees it, and an android is not a cyborg. A cyborg is anyone with a pacemaker or a mechanical hand. You are defined as a cyborg at that point. An android is a human-like machine. Then if you were to see what an android sees, the entire world would become a series of ones and zeros. The entire world would become binary to you. That's how you would filter the world. So the term binary spirits is, it's a good term, but I would consider it more like a medical term as opposed to a popular term. And the term, therefore, does not resonate for everyone. Now, per the Chippewa Cree Tribal CHCC, the Capitol Hill Community Council, which you can visit here at the email address or website address that I will give you. And I'm going to put this into live stream, and I will put this as well into our infinite call, which is why I have the infinite call up. No, it's actually in the private call with Bren, who sent that private message. We're going to change that now to the infinite and put this in here, and hopefully it still links. It's been a while since I dealt with this particular organization, so and let's hope this still links. The president of the organization being President Zachary Pullen, which, believe it or not, does not detract from his Native American ancestry. Most hopefully. With that in mind, we're going to put this into the infinite call as well, for people to access at their convenience. And hopefully they're not out of date, which they may very well be, because these links were something that I really last time checked into in the May/June 2014 issue of the magazine Native Peoples, and that was a long fucking time ago, 11 years by now. But in that magazine issue that I have of Native Peoples, which I use as a teaching device for the lads, this term stems from the Ojibwe phrase Nij Manidowag and replaces the outdated, oversimplified term Berdache, considered offensive by many Native American communities because of its pejorative and non-American, meaning non-Native American etymology, a slur referential an American Indian who assumes the dress, social status, and role of the opposite sex, which appeared frequently in research and anthropological studies that aimed to describe the place of gay men in Native society in the 18th and early 19th centuries. The phrase two-spirit began to gain traction across Native America after 1990, when 13 men, women, and transgender people from various tribes met in Winnipeg, Canada, with the task of finding a term that would unite the 2S LGBTQ plus Native community. For me, and I'm still reading the quote from the president of the Capitol Hill Community Council, Zachary Pullen. So when I say for me, it's himself speaking. For me, the term twa spirit resists a Western definition of who we are and what we should be. Two spirits, or twin-spirited peoples, are integral to the struggle of undoing the impacts of historical trauma, because our roles in tribes historically were part of the traditions taken away from us with Westernization. So the Berdache, or twin spirit, was not a third category, but a way of referring to a continuum of human behavior that doesn't fit neatly into the European notions of male and female. At the beginning of the European invasion of North America, there were more than 1,000 distinct Indian cultures in North America, so making broad generalizations about the role of the Berdache, or twin spirit, in traditional Indian societies is risky. Of necessity hereafter, I must make some generalizations about the twin spirit among the Northern Plains tribes, groups such as the Blackfoot, Crow, Cheyenne, Gros Ventre, Sioux, and others. Like most cultures, the Indian nations of the Northern Plains defined specific roles for men and those for women. In general, women gathered wild plant foods, while the men were hunters and warriors. However, though roles were not rigid, there were many women who hunted and went on war parties and were still considered women. Just doing things normally done by the opposite gender did not make one into a Berdache or twin spirit. Among most of the Northern Plains cultures, there were some boys who preferred the company of girls and who eventually dressed as girls. Older ethnographic literature about these individuals generally refers to them as Berdaches. Among the Crow, at about the ages of 10 to 12 years, a young boy might take on the female clothing and female work. As a male who dressed and acted like a woman, this individual was accepted in Crow society and would often marry a man. In describing the male Berdache, Edwin Thompson Denig, writing in the year 1856, says, "He is not to be distinguished in any way from the woman." However, in Crow society, the Berdache was neither male nor female, but an individual who had characteristics of both, hence a trois spirit or a twin spirit, a person with trois spirits. In the 1876 Battle of the Rosebud, one Crow twin spirit put on male clothes and distinguished himself/herself, I'll use the gender-neutral pronoun of yourself, in battle against the Lakota. For this, he/she, the gender-neutral pronoun would be she, was given the name Oshtishk, which means finds them and kills them. Since the twin spirit was neither male nor female, in many of the Northern Plains tribes, the twin spirit had an important role in the ceremonial life of the tribe. And what was generally felt it was generally felt that the twin spirit had special spiritual powers, and in ceremonies could take on either male or female roles. In the sun dance, for example, there were certain rituals which could only be performed by a twin spirit. Among many of the Plains tribes, the twin spirit was felt to have strong curative powers. Among the Cheyenne, for example, war parties often included a twin spirit whose job was to care for the wounded. In addition, the spiritual powers of the twin spirit were felt to bring good luck. All this made them the perfect corpsmen, or military medics. The presence of a trois spirit in a war party was always desired because of their special spiritual powers. Large war parties were seldom without at least one twin spirit. The assigned corpsman or battle medic, combat medic, to the war effort. While much of the literature about the role of the twin spirit in Northern Plains cultures focuses on men, there were also many instances of women who wore men's clothing and took men's roles. Some of these women married other women, some other warriors, and some were chiefs, or rather chieftainesses. Among the Blackfoot, women took on the aggressive roles of men, and they were referred to as manly-hearted women. Or rather, those women who did take on the aggressive roles of men were referenced as manly-hearted women. Obviously, all women could not do this, or the tribe would collapse. But the tribe certainly encouraged women who wished to do so to aspire to whatever they wanted to be, and allowed them to become what they wanted to be, and honored them for success in attaining how they visualized themselves, what they envisioned themselves as what they could be, they could become. They would usually begin to take on these roles as teenagers when they would join war parties. They would wear male dress, marry women, and often obtain leadership positions as warriors and or spiritual leaders. What was /is the American Indian twin spirit or Berdache in this context? Too often there is an attempt to use European categories to understand the twin spirit and thus to assume that they are homosexual. Undoubtedly, some were and are homosexual, but the role of the twin spirit is not a sexual one. Sometimes the twin spirit has been described as a transvestite or as a transgendered person. Again, this is not a entirely true image of who they were or are. Gender and sexuality in Native American Indian cultures allows a wide range of variation, and the concept of the twin spirit simply shows that cultures exist which allow a great deal of freedom with regard to gender identity. And I think that this is probably, of all things, best portrayed in the Predator franchise with the Native American girl. Hey, somebody help me out here. Aristides, can you get me the title of the Predator movie with the Native American chick who obviously personifies everything I've just described? If you would be so kind. Thank you. Let's see. He's very good at this, so he should be back in a moment with that, or on in a moment with that. Yes, he would be so kind. I hope he's heard me. You have heard me, yes. So a call out to Aristides, and if you're out there, help me out here, and we'll see if he responds. He's still mute for right now. Okay, we can, I guess we can assume that that's a call that may have fallen. Anyone else out there? Movie title, please, for The Predator with the Native American chick. All right, if I don't get something in the live stream. Anyhow, so our man, Jackstar says, I thought she was the first one. I guess I should refer to him now by his new name, Tower 206. It's a prequel, so you are actually technically correct. He says they're afraid of me. Yes, they are. They truly are. I know that much. Okay, Predator, Indian girl. I hate to use that term because it's so fucking stupid. Predator, Indian girl. The Indian girl is in the movie Prey, 2022 prequel to the Predator franchise. So it's actually technically the first movie. She's the lead character, Nauru, played by the Native American Indian actress Amber Midthunder. So there we are. She is a young warrior and healer from the Comanche Nation. She is the archetypal twin spirit. So if anybody thinks what I've just said is boring, watch the Predator film Prey, and your mind will change. That movie enraged the toxic male audience. They excoriated it. By the way, Jackstar says, I haven't seen it. Okay, we'll check it out. And this even died in mourning on the First Nations NOTHANKSGIVEN and Native Americana Indian Holocaust Memorial Day, Eve Day. I'm only briefly calling attention to the fallout of the Nexperia chip crises, the gender dimensions of protectionist trade policies, and Mohammed bin Salman's highly priced vanity projects in Saudi Arabia. The highlights this week being, the communist Chinese Empire of the East just keeps escalating its dispute with the Empire of Japan, and the United States President Donald Trump he will visit Communist China on the Asian mainland in April after a very good unexpected phone call with Xi Jinping. But first, here's my analysis on today's top story. Dodgy is no more, and in its wake, only chaos. The race to succeed Elon Musk ended with Reuters being told the agency for the, what was it again? Department of Government Efficiency doesn't exist. In April, Elon Musk began backing away from his role as head of Dodgy. By June, he was more or less fully gone from the District of Columbia. In his wake, he left a power vacuum and significant ill will that has apparently led to the dissolution of Dodgy 8 months before its charter expires. To call Musk's DC tenure contentious would be an understatement. As a man accustomed to getting what he wants and functioning as a powerful executive, bear in mind everything that our Aristides described while being a man on drugs, He swept through Washington with a figurative chainsaw, slashing budgets, firing workers, well, mass firing workers in practice, and making audacious power grabs. In fact, in Stalin's days, we'd all call this purges and, power plays, as in the Machiavellian sense that Stalinist Russia perfected. Musk's brash behavior, or misbehavior, angered government employees and alienated would-be allies like Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. Eventually, the bad blood reached a fever pitch, and Musk had a minor physical altercation with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Now, Politico magazine, it's Politico with a O at the end, not an AL, as in a Politico. Politico magazine details the stunning fallout, and you can always follow up with their article. By late May, Dodge and Musk had lost favor with President Trump, and White House aides began pushing back more forcefully against the fledgling government agency. When Musk was officially given a farewell by the White House on the 30th day in May, it also pushed out his right-hand man, Steve Davis. But Davis, an engineer who had worked closely with Musk for over 20 years, including at Dodge, simply refused to leave. He stepped in to try and take the reins, but this didn't sit well with many of the remaining Dodge staffers. But others remained loyal, essentially splitting the department in twain. When those uncomfortable with Davis's leadership, if we could call it that, given that he was no longer a government employee at all, tried to plan for Dodge's future without him, Davis accused them of staging a coup d'etat, or stroke of state. Or rather, in this case, a stroke of a state within a state. Well, how about just a stroke? Like in, the kind of cerebral hemorrhage or brain attack that would lay you out. The White House quickly rooted out his loyalists, putting an end to Davis's brief attempt to consolidate control in less than a fortnight. That's the old in English for fortnight, literally 14 nights. It est 12 weeks. What followed was a series of restructurings, changes in leadership, and ultimately the end of Dodge as a centralized organization. When Reuters reached out to the White House to ask about the status of Dodge earlier this month, it was told, "That doesn't exist!" Musk rode into Washington with big ambitions of slashing government spending by trillions of dollars. Instead, during his brief time in the District of Columbia, the swamp that became a sewer that under Trump was supposed to be drained but instead became a toxic landfill, government spending actually increased, and he left behind many burned bridges. So Dodge has had its day. Elon Musk's Dodge was a damp squib. A government-wide freeze on hiring is over, and the federal deficit has reached a record $38 trillion United States dollars in the past month. Dodge has been dodged. Elon Musk's once fearsome United States Department of Government Efficiency, acronymous as DOGE, but referenced only as Dodge after the crypto coin, has been shut down 8 months before its contract officially ends in July of 2026. What was supposed to be an organization that exploded traditional ways of running the federal government has turned into a damp squib. Dodge was established by President Trump on the first day of his second midterm in office. Headed by Tesla chief Musk and the entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, who resigned early on to run for governor of Ohio, it struck the kind of fear into government bureaucrats that a visit from the Red Guards would have instilled during Mao's Cultural Revolution. Musk's minions rampaged through government offices, whether it was the United States Institute of Peace or the Wilson Center. The idea was that the bastions of the liberal establishment would not simply be purged, but permanently abolished. Now Musk's efficiency office itself has been disbanded. That doesn't exist! As a centralized entity, Office of Personnel Management Director Scott Cooper stated over this weekend. Hasta la vista, in other words. After Musk torched or appeared to torch his relationship with Trump in May, Dodge began to sputter. The Trump maladministration is trying to put the best face possible on its dissolution. In a reference to the United States' digital service on social media, Q4 declared, Doge may not have centralized leadership under at USDS, but the principles of Doge remain alive and well. Deregulation, eliminating fraud, waste and abuse, reshaping the federal workforce, making efficiency a first-class citizen, etc. Yeah, right. The truth is that a government-wide freeze on hiring is over and the federal deficit has reached a record 38 trillion United States dollars. That's 29 trillion pounds sterling in the last month. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that Trump's one big beautiful bill will add over 3 trillion United States dollars or 2.3 trillion pounds sterling to the deficit, and that the deficit for this fiscal year will run to 1.8 trillion United States dollars or 1.4 trillion pounds sterling. The only mitigating factor has been a de facto tax hike by Trump himself, who has imposed punitive tariffs. If the debt remains, so does the insalubrious legacy of Doge. One legacy of that fiasco is the agencies that it either denuded or shuttered during its brief but chaotic existence. Take the Kennan Institute, which was formerly housed in the Wilson Center on the Washington Mall. Its new headquarters on K Street is a one-room office. Said institute might make a comeback, but closing down the Wilson Center was symbolic of Doge's march of folly through Washington. Another inadvertent legacy of Doge is actually diametrically opposed to its mandate: the expansion of big government in the form of National Guard troops stationed in a variety of American cities. When Doge staffer Edward Big Balls Corazine was attacked by 10 juveniles near DuPont Circle in Washington, District of Columbia in early August, Trump responded by stationing the National Guard in Washington and other cities. We see the results of that today. But this initiative as well appears to be ebbing as Trump refrains from sending in troops to New York City, and a federal judge blocks his deployment of the National Guard in Washington itself, or Washington State for that matter. As Trump focuses, on this bullshit, and I guess tried to reinvigorate the presence of the National Guard by having a couple of them shot, Musk focuses on becoming the world's first trillionaire. Musk, who attended the White House dinner for the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman last week, appears to have put the entire episode in the rearview mirror. You know, ketamine can do that. Once upon a time, he called himself the president's first buddy, which I take it has homoerotic overtones. Then came the feud with Trump, which most definitively had homoerotic overtones. Now the reconciliation cometh with the outing of Jeffrey Epstein's entitled circle. Twas a California writer what helped expose Jeffrey Epstein and the powery elite that coddled him. Jeffrey Epstein called her number one, and her story of a childhood stolen away, first by relatives and then by the infamous sexual predator and child sex peddler, has become the best-selling nonfiction book in America for much of the last month. Virginia Roberts Giuffre did not live to see the impact of her memoir. The most famous victim of the mass child sex trafficker is said to have committed suicide in April at the age of 41, the transitive number of when she was first sex peddled at the age of 14. But her bequeathment, titled Nobody's Girl, subtitled A Memoir of Surviving Abuse and Fighting for Justice, has created a tempest because of what it reveals about the casual cruelty of the people who manipulated and abused young women and those who covered up for them. Giuffre's book would not have been the same Indeed, it would not have been possible at all but for her collaboration with a brilliant and compassionate fellow Californian, Amy Wallace, the book's co-authoress and a veteran journalist who helped lay bare a story that many powerful people would prefer remain untold. The book, titled Nobody's Girl, details how Giuffre went from an innocent early childhood in Florida to being sexually molested by her father, and then into the ghastly orbit of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And as a historian, I myself am obligated to contextualize that in the macroeconomic context, all trade wars are wars on women. While tariffs make everyone worse off, the negative impacts are unevenly distributed by gender, with men often coming out ahead. Amid American Imperial President Donald Trump's imposition of tariffs on a range of imported goods this year, the Communist Chinese dictator Xi Jinping and other officials in Beijing have insisted that there are no winners in trade wars. In absolute terms, they're right. Everyone is worse off in a trade war. But in relative terms, the negative impacts of protectionism are unevenly distributed by gender, with men often coming out ahead. This is because these policies are based not only on economic calculations, but on political ones, influenced by gender norms that value work that has been traditionally performed by men over that performed by women. In point of fact, the Roman Republic crumbled when patriarchy prevailed. The story of the fall of the Roman Republic involves dysfunctional government, political selfishness, and constitutional collapse, played by the usual actors in togas, famously among them Cicero and Caesar. It also, unexpectedly, offers an overlooked but important lesson about how woman's history affects everyone's history in ways that deserve to be remembered. When the first emperor of Rome, Caesar, that's the correct pronunciation in the Latin from whence we derive the word Kaiser, and ultimately the word Tsar, the Slavicization thereof, Caesar Augustus, rose to power, sweeping away legal norms and enacting the law of 3 children, sometime between 18 years before Christ and 9 years after his risen. The legislation prevented all wealthy, free-born women from claiming their rightful inheritances unless they had given birth 3 times. Fiercely independent women who had begun to find a voice in public life, thanks to the generous dowries or the estates that they inherited, were expected to be mothers and childbearers first, and activists second, if at all. As the Roman Republic's social and political breakdown quickened, decades of progress in women's self-determination, emancipation, and participation in public life were erased. The health of the Republic suffered because of it. The Roman Republic's carefully calibrated framework of legislative, judicial, and executive action had long been, in practice, a misogynistic, patriarchal, oligarchical swamp. From its founding in 509 years before the risen Christos, young men were doted on as promising scions of the house. Girls were given a version of their dad's names. Colorless adjectives differentiated any female siblings, first, second, or third. They were forced to learn about chastity as young girls and fidelity when they matured and became as wives. Marriage contracts could be severe, with a man's legal control extending over his entire household. Roman wives replaced their own family's name with their husband's first name, signifying by a quirk of Latin grammar that she belonged to him, that is, was in his possession. The men of the Republic, who called themselves their society's chosen fathers, enforced this trois-tiered society through strict voting laws and limits on women's autonomy. Heavily manipulated voting districts ensured that only the voices of the senatorial elite, Roma's self-proclaimed optimates, or best men, dominated, not progressive champions, freed slaves, or newly enfranchised citizens. No woman could run for higher office. Women could neither sit on juries nor exercise their vote. In 212 years before the risen Christos, the statesman and Senator Cato the Elder said, "As soon as women becomest the equals of men, they will have become our masters." Yet, as Rome's republic expanded beyond the capital city, beyond Italia, and gradually acquired its Mediterranean empire, stories of a different sort of woman reset women's expectations at home. In the Eastern Mediterranean, highly educated women philosophers, avant-garde poets, and above all, the fearless Greek-speaking queens of Aegyptus, including Cleopatra, held sway. Inspired by these role models across Europe, Africa, and Asia, Roman women began to challenge the Republic's inequities and ideologies and claim their voices in the male-dominated Republic. Grandmothers and mothers taught their daughters to read and cultivate their intellectual talents. An educated girl, the new wave of educators argued, knew how to assert herself against a man who swaggers through the city acting like a tyrant. Cato's quotation cometh from a pivotal moment when women and their allies poured into the streets to demand the repeal of a wartime-era tax upon their savings. The pink tax, which we still have throughout the West today. Other women were political leaders who earned the scorn of their contemporaries. Some were erased or forgotten. In one case, the life of an upper-class woman and contemporary of Julius Caesar, Clodia, saw her reputation destroyed by false claims of harlotry, home-wrecking, and husband-killing. Clodia, an unapologetic championess for expanded voting rights for the enfranchised men of Italia, bravely went before an all-male jury in the center of the Roman Forum in April of 56 years before Christ as the prosecution's star witness to testify against her day's runaway endemic corruption. Instead of defending his client from the charges, however, the leading defense attorney, Marcus Tullius Cicero, turned the case into a referendum on Clodia's character. Transforming Clodia into the trial's villainess, the speech, the Procelio, outlasted Roma's fall. It has been taught in high school and college classrooms for 2 millennia as a master class of rhetoric from which countless men in business, law, and politics have learned to emulate Cicero's misogyny. Trailblazing women like Clodia have always, in the historian shorthand, been called ahead of their time. But history deserves to be told from another point of view, by pointing out the parade of men who have stubbornly and perennially thwarted progress. For 'twas patriarchy what undermined the Roman Republic. Roma's Republic would have survived had its own people listened to, not silenced, its woman. Thusly didst the Epstein case break the DOJ, the so-called Department of Justice. The Justice Department hitting a new low with the Epstein files. Not only is the department's misbehavior not normal, it is also, as is becoming increasingly clear, self-defeating. On a Friday evening in October of 2021, the Justice Department launched into a damage control mode. The Attorney General, Merrick Garland, the Deputy Attorney General, Lisa Monaco, and other senior officials gathered on an emergency conference call to decide how to deal with what they considered out-of-the-line remarks from President Joseph Biden. Their commander-in-chief, Steve Bannon, the former advisor to Donald Trump, had defied a subpoena from the House Select Committee investigating January 6th. Committee members were weighing whether to refer Bannon to the Justice Department for prosecution. The White House Secretary, Jen Psaki, had ducked commenting on a matter of such delicacy, so telling reporters, That would be up to the Department of Justice, and it would be their purview to determine. They're independent. But Biden, asked by the CNN reportress Caitlin Collins whether he thought those who ignored subpoenas should face contempt charges, didn't mince his words. So saying, I do, yes. As Carol Leonig and Aaron C. Davis report in their new book titled Injustice, those three words so alarmed Garland and his team that they felt compelled to issue a statement effectively rebuking their own employer. It asked their commander-in-chief, the President of the United States, in his office of the executive. In other words, they rebuked the executive power of the state. Just 51 minutes after Biden's comments, the department's chief spokesman, Anthony Coley, released this deliberately tart comment, and here I quote sourcing from himself, Anthony Coley, "The Department of Justice will make its own independent decisions in all prosecutions based solely on the facts and the law. Period. Full stop." Really? Compare this with the reaction of another Department of Justice on another Fall Friday 4 years earlier to a presidential directive that was far more pointed. Trump posted on Truth Social, which is neither, and here I read therefrom. "Now that the Democrats are using the Epstein hoax involving Democrats, not Republicans, to try and deflect from their disastrous shutdown," emphasis his own, "and all of their other failures, I will be asking AG Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice, together with our great patriots at the FBI, to investigate Jeffrey Epstein's involvement and relationship with Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, J.P. Morgan, Chase, and many other people and institutions, to determine what was going on with them and him. All arrows are pointing to the Democrats." This time the answer from the Attorney General was not full stop. It was full speed ahead, with ICE's secretive mass deportation program. But ICE and Border Patrol don't operate the same way. For much of ICE's 22-year history, the agency aimed to operate with relative discretion. Officers handled administrative tasks and carried out deportations in what they thought of as targeted campaigns. Now, amid the White House's crackdown on illegal immigration, the Department of Homeland Security is resorting to more indiscriminate methods, flooding the streets in certain cities across our country. Department of Homeland Security insists that it is focused on undocumented immigrants with criminal records, but some of its reported arrests of United States citizens, of those without criminal convictions, no criminal convictions whatsoever, in fact, are noted for any of the arrests, prove otherwise. The maladministration recently tapped Border Patrol, known for its paramilitary-style culture, to lead more raids, and its teams have taken an even more aggressive approach. Border Patrol agents are expected to soon deploy to parts of Louisiana and Mississippi in an operation reportedly called Swamp Sweep, similar to the Charlotte's Web operation that agents carried out in Charlotte, North Carolina, where more than 250 people were arrested. A human rights attorney told the New Yorker magazine staff writer Sarah Stillman, a winner of the Pulitzer Prize and many other awards, who has the skills of both an investigative reporter and a humane chronicler of our times, "I don't know that the piece you're contemplating is necessarily writable right now," before the reporter received a stunning video call. In early September, the New Yorker's Sarah Stillman received a video call from a group of 11 people who had been forcibly mass deported from the United States and flown to a secret detention camp in the forests of Ghana. One man told her, "My stomach is really hurting, and we have to beg for food." Another said, "We fear we'll be tortured and killed." The Trump maladministration has been mass deporting scores of people, including some who had lived here for decades and others who have no criminal records whatsoever, to countries where they have no known connection. To Uzbekistan, South Sudan, Panama, Ghana, and even the black African Taiwanese satellite microstatelet of Eswatini, to be confined there without legal rights. Many of these people have been granted legal protection in the United States from being deported to their home countries based on credible claims that they would face persecution, torture, and ultimately death there. By abusing this shadowy process, known as third country removal, the maladministration has found a way to sidestep that obligation. What happens to deportees abroad is out of the United States government's hands. With an immigration attorney and activists going on record to state, it's absolutely shocking and illegal, and it fits this administration's general pattern: draconian, cruel processes that create a spectacle and coerce people into leaving of their own accord. Many of the public raids, traffic stops, and aggressive mass arrests being carried out by federal immigration agencies across the United States have produced horrifying images and have sparked opposition to the maladministration's policies. But this aspect of the American mass deportation regime has largely been hidden from the public, and third country removals are only growing more common. They are often done quickly and with great secrecy, leaving family members in the dark about the whereabouts of their loved ones. The aforecited Stillman has reported in this week's New Yorker magazine on an informal detective agency of sorts, made up of attorneys, human rights advocates, and flight tracking experts that has sprung up to provide families with some answers. Still, many deportees enter a kind of black hole after they are sent abroad. Yet MAGA itself has no future, and Marjorie Taylor Greene knows it. I must confess that the Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene surprised me on Friday going into last weekend by announcing her resignation from the Congress effective January 5th. I was surprised because just a few days prior, she flexed her muscle when she got the president to step off. She had been demanding the release of the Epstein files. Donald Trump called her a traitress. Though she got death threats, bomb threats, and rape threats, she didn't budge. Then, last Monday, he caved. CNN's Dana Bash said their feud was the breakup heard around the world. That seemed confirmed by Greene's resignation. Trump called her a rhino, acronymous for a Republican in name only. He pledged support for a primary challenger. Indeed, it appeared she is similar to many moderate Republicans, a casualty of a Russo collaborationist red Republican insurgent party that's in thrall to Donald Trump. But I think there's another way of looking at it. First, it's far from certain that she would have lost. As I have said before, Greene is highly attuned to the conspiracy wing of the Republican Party. That's the faction that demanded the release of the Epstein files. That's the faction, on hearing last spring that the Justice Department would not make them public, that lost faith in Donald Trump. By the way, Vicky Johnson in the chat says, "Hello, Douglas. Thank you for all you do. Love you." Hey, I love you in return, dear lady. Okay. Love you in return. All right, at Vicky Johnson. Okay, and with that, there we go. Okay, love you, honey. And what is it our dear Brendan says here? Okay, send me something in the call here. Rising Republican star Nick Fuentes says when his movement takes power, they will send the army into every major city and immediately ban women from voting. This is the Republican Party's final form. Nick Fuentes talks about what day one will look like when he's president. I'm bringing the National Guard
everywhere in the major cities and taking away women's right to vote.
Oh, and our man Brendan says he's the yang to your yin. How about this? He's the shit to my piss. Okay, with that, back to task. Now, as I said, Green stood up to Trump and won. Would she lose next year? Maybe. But she also raised the question of whether Trump is a spent force. He shot his wad all over us, but there's nothing left in that wrinkled sack of balls. Second, Green is ambitious. She appears to be dissatisfied with representing a district and is aiming for something bigger, perhaps a run for the presidency, or, more likely, a role in the Pundit Corps. Before the official breakup, Green said the president abandoned his MAGA base. She criticized the Republicans' role in the longest government shutdown in history. She was vocal about dramatically raising Obamacare premiums. She trashed Speaker Mike Johnson. On ABC's The View, the co-hostess Sunny Hostin said, "I feel like I'm sitting next to a completely different Marjorie Taylor Greene." The co-hostess Joy Behar said, "Maybe you should become a Democrat." In response, Greene said, "I'm not a Democrat. I think both parties have failed." It doesn't take us much to imagine her as a television punditress who speaks for the alienation of the MAGA faithful from all politics. Also, she's resigning in January. Congress people don't usually do that if they believe they can't win. Instead, they say they aren't running again. That leads me to my final point. It's being suggested that Greene wasn't MAGA enough. Trump declared her persona non grata. As a consequence, she's resigning. This is the president's preferred view. But the truth is probably the opposite. Well, first, a word from our dear Holly. Holly says she did wait until 12 days after she qualified for full retirement bennies. An astute observation, honey. Thank you, Holly. Love you dearly. And, of course, we'll bring you on to the call just in case you want to say something later tonight, perhaps. Let's see now. Oh, she said that on the Infinite call, but I'll add her to the People's call here. Here we are, add people, and just put her in there in case she wants to suddenly show up and say something. And there we go. And press the add button. Okay, so she's on the call. If she wants to blurt something, she's welcome to for a second. All right. As I said, the reality is that Greene is MAGA to the core. She embodies its purest id. She spread the lie that the 2020 election was stolen. She defended the J6 insurrection. She suggested support for executing Democrats. The list goes on and on. It could be that Greene is leaving because there's no future for her, but it could be that she's leaving because there's no future for MAGA. Greene implied as much in her resignation announcement. In the video, she characterized herself and Trump voters as loyal soldiers in a rebellion against the establishment. She suggested that they were betrayed by their leader, who joined forces with the enemy. She said, and here I quote as she, "I refuse to be a battered wife, hoping it all goes away and gets better. If I am cast aside by the president and replaced by neocons, big pharma, big tech, military-industrial war complex, foreign leaders, and the elite donor class that can never, ever relate to real Americans, then many common Americans have been cast aside and replaced as well." Okay, so we're getting some incoming input. Holly says, "Hardcore QAnon crazy." Indeed. Indeed, no denying that. But the strongest evidence to suggest that Green herself does not believe there's a future for MAGA came when she said the following: "There is no plan to save the world or a 4D chess game being played. It's just one line, easily overlooked, but it's critically important. It refers to the story that the conspiracy wing of the Republican Party believes to be the absolute truth, that there is a secret cabal of pedophiles represented by Jeffrey Epstein, or rather personified thereby, that's trying to destroy America. The hero of this story, Donald John Trump, was supposed to return to power after being cheated in 2020 to reveal the names of the conspirators. They were said to be people like billionaire George Soros and other Uber Jews who control Democrats like Barack Obama. The plan was supposed to culminate in a bloody day of reckoning called the Storm. It was to vanquish evil, restore justice, and make America great again. When the Justice Department decided against releasing the Epstein files on account of Donald Trump's name appearing in them all too many times, MAGA supporters experienced a crisis of faith. He had forced them to choose between believing in him or believing in their enemies. In her resignation announcement, Green affirmed that the enemies are indeed real. To quote she, "Standing up for American women who were raped at 14 years old, trafficked, and abused by rich, powerful men should not result in me being called a traitress and threatened by the president himself." And in saying, "There is no plan to save the world," she came as close as she'll ever get to telling supporters they're right to stop believing in him, herself thereby suggesting there will be no storm. She isn't a traitress to MAGA, but by implication, Trump is. The president's most zealous supporters have for years been willing to overlook his crimes because, as believers in the QAnon conspiracy theory, they believed he was chosen by God to vanquish villainy. Their loyalty got him through the first impeachment. It got him through the pandemic and the J6 insurrection. It got him through the second impeachment. And after Russo collaborationist Red Republican insurgent elites left him for dead, it was the basis for his political revival and victory nearly 3 years later. However, during the past few months, his most zealous supporters have been increasingly demoralized, unsure of what to believe about the plan. Now, with the alienation of a figure with impeccable, just unimpeachable to use upon MAGA credentials, they have a persuasive confirmation of their suspicions. Trump continues to believe, as president, that he can do whatever he wants. The law and the Constitution be damned. He was always mistaken in that belief, but the error is becoming increasingly acute. He has divided MAGA, the most powerful political force, protecting himself from facing the full consequences of his misactions. Meanwhile, the opposition is not only more united, but downright burning with rage. The story of Green and a demoralized MAGA base is the untold aspect of next year's congressional elections. Most of the focus is on indie voters who are getting madder about the high cost of essentials, and for good reason. Independents helped Trump beat Kamala Harris. But what happens when MAGA thinks of Trump as no better than Harris? As Marjorie Taylor Greene said, both parties have failed. They don't vote for Democrats. They stay home. And so the junta is already eating their own, with the Pentagon opening an investigation into the Senator Mark Kelly for being in the wrong job. The Department of Defense said it is opening an investigation into Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, a retired Navy captain, for serious allegations of misconduct. The Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, said the investigation is related to a video Kelly and other Democratic lawmakers made that encouraged members of our military and our intelligence community not to comply with illegal orders from President Donald Trump's maladministration. The Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, apparently thinks that Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona is in the wrong job. Kelly was one of 6 Democratic legislators who released a video reminding the officers and enlisted people, meaning service persons of our United States military, both commissioned and non-commissioned, that they are bound by their oaths to disobey illegal orders. Now Hegseth wants to recall Kelly, a decorated combat veteran and former astronaut no less, back to active duty in the Navy so that Kelly can be court-martialed for what Hegseth sees as riling up the troops against their commander-in-chief. Hegseth has a point. Maybe Kelly shouldn't be in Congress, but the secretary is wrong about putting the senator back in the naval service. In a more sensible and serious world, and yes, I know this is not the one we live in right now, Hegseth would be fired, and Kelly would take Hegseth's job as Secretary of Defense. Kelly is at least as qualified to lead the Pentagon as other recent appointees and would probably be an easy addition to any future Democratic administration shopping list for senior defense or national security roles. He was also shortlisted to be Kamala Harris's running mate in 2024. A Navy pilot, Kelly flew 39 combat missions in Operation Desert Storm, My Own War. He closets a uniform heavy with awards, including medals with the Combat V, a special edition that denotes valor and heroism. After the senator posted a picture of those medals yesterday on social media, Hegseth, one of the most eager and petty trolls in a maladministration full of them, immediately took to social media and claimed that they were in the wrong order. He also warned Captain Kelly, putting Kelly's rank in scare quotes, that he will have to submit to a uniform inspection once he's recalled. After his combat service, Kelly joined the Astronaut Corps and piloted or commanded multiple space shuttle missions. His twin brother, Scott, also becoming an astronaut. Reminds me of our man Sammy Romero, and his brother as well. In 2011, the year of mine own late and sainted mother's murder, Kelly retired. Not to kick, this isn't Kelly's Heroes, people. He wasn't out to kick back and get rich, but instead to help his wife as a care provider, something I can relate to all too well, because the former member of Congress, Gabby Giffords, had been nearly killed in a shooting earlier that year. Shot in the head and left brain damaged by an assassin. Kelly's had some business ventures, but he's a bit light on management experience. Still, he'd be a far better choice than Hegseth, who is now vying to snag the never-coveted title of worst Secretary of Defense in modern American history. Hegseth, for the moment, is in no danger of taking the crown from Robert McNamara, a brilliant man who nonetheless kept sending American boys to Vietnam even when he knew the war was forfeited. Not lost, but forfeited. The day is young, however, and Trump is determined to start a war in Latin America that could offer Hegseth the opportunity to give McNamara a run for his money. But unlike Hegseth, McNamara also did some good during the frostiest days of the Third World War in effect, so grossly misnomered the Cold War, including modernizing Pentagon procedures and updating American nuclear strategy. So did other flawed secretaries. Melvin Laird created important new Defense Department institutions while privately and ineffectively opposing the expansion to the Vietnam War to Cambodia, Kampuchea today. Jim Schlesinger and Harold Brown did what they could to arrest the free fall of American power in the 1970s. Liz Aspin tried and failed to kill the national missile defenses. Donald Rumsfeld initiated post-World War III/Cold War reforms, but stubbornly refused to think about the post-Gulf War administration of Iraq. Even James V. Forrestal, the first modern Secretary of Defense, was also better at his job, and he was fired in 1949 after a conflict with President Harry Truman and a nervous breakdown, thereafter being assassinated later that year by defenestration out of a window at Bethesda Naval Hospital. Whatever his shortcomings, Forrestal was an honorable and hard-working public servant, which is why a building in Washington, District of Columbia, and an aircraft carrier were both named in his honor. All of these secretaries were competent men with records of achievement before coming to the Pentagon. They were professionals and patriots who cared about the security of these United States and the people who served in uniform. Hegseth, by comparison, is a dude bro sporting some questionable tattoos, a creation of television's who's acting as if he's won The Apprentice, the nuclear weapons season. He seems to believe that his job is hectoring young men about being fat and forcing black men out of the military for having beards. He has no understanding of national strategy and no real experience managing anything. Nor is he a man who can serve as a model for his organization. Hegseth wants to recall Kelly so that he can level charges under the Uniform Code of Military Justice against him. But when Hegseth was a serving officer, he should have faced the UCMJ himself. By his own admission, he is an adulterer with an alcohol problem. Apparently, military justice for thee and not for me being the new rule in Hegseth's Pentagon. His tenure so far has featured a series of appalling security lapses and janky public performances that call into question not only his character, but his emotional stability. The Trump White House knows that Hegseth is nothing like Forrestal or Aspen, or even Rumsfeld for that matter, and that he is unqualified to do anything but push-ups. This realization is probably why Secretary of the Army Daniel Driscoll, and not the actual head of the Pentagon, is the person meeting with the Russians in Geneva trying to stop the biggest war in Europe since 1945. Trump seems to like Hegseth, but the maladministration also seems to be taking care not to let Hegseth anywhere, near anything breakable or dangerous. Of course, Hegseth is still the Secretary of Defense, and thus the person who, in theory, must advise the President of the United States on the most dire issues of war and peace. He is also the official likely to be in the room and who would verify the orders if the Commander-in-Chief calls for the abuse of nuclear weapons. The idea that Hegseth would have to advise Trump in a moment of crisis is genuinely terrifying. The president is already showing increasing signs of panic and irrationality, and Hegseth is hardly the kind of stable or prudent aide one hopes would be nearby in times of danger. For now, the White House seems content to let Hegseth preen and strut and yell, but the United States still needs an actual Secretary of Defense, and Pete Hegseth is completely unqualified for any position of public trust, elected or appointed in the government of these United States. So Trump should look around and choose one to replace him. He has plenty of options. Top of the list by my advisement being Mark Kelly. But it's Trump himself who must be removed. The UCMJ, or the Uniform Code of Military Justice, governs the conduct of every person in the United States military and applies to all ranks and branches, whether in combat or not, up to and including the Executive Commander-in-Chief, i.e., the President of the United States. All service members are taught and are expected to understand its core principles. Ignorantia juris non excusat, or ignorance of the law is not a legal defense in the United States military. Under Article 92 of the UCMJ, members have a duty to obey all lawful commands, and they have a parallel duty to disobey all unlawful commands. Obeying a manifestly illegal order, like an order to target civilians, can expose a service member to criminal liability. The duty to disobey manifestly illegal orders is a cornerstone of international law, with foundations in World War II atrocities-related trials like Nuremberg. Orders of such nature that their unlawfulness is clear and obvious, such as an order to target unarmed civilians, are considered manifestly illegal. Now, this is the Department of Defense research librarian in me coming out, and obviously I can tell you what no one else can about manifestly illegal orders, having been subject to them in the past myself. Donald John Trump has ordered the summary execution of at least 83 people so far in strikes on suspected drug trafficking boats in the Caribbean and the Pacific Oceans. He's fighting a two-front war that is illegal because it's never been declared. Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth call these targets narco-terrorists because they think that means they can treat them as enemy combatants in a war that does not exist. It does not privilege them that right. Even if the victims were narco-terrorists, for which Trump has provided zero evidence, at worst, they are citizen criminals entitled to interdiction and legal process under United States and international law. No country has the right to execute non-combatant civilians unless faced with imminent threat. Otherwise, unhinged leaders could shoot people for sport, which Trump's snuff videos are chillingly starting to resemble. International condemnation of Trump's campaign is growing, along with a global chorus accusing him of mass murder that would be louder if Trump weren't threatening foreign trade like a mob boss. Formerly strong American imperial allies, including the United Kingdom, Colombia, and the Netherlands, have either refused or suspended related intelligence sharing with the American empire. Military support groups are starting to talk in earnest, offering counseling and advice on what to do when faced with illegal order situations. This brings us to Trump's calls to execute United States lawmakers. Against this legal framework, the President of the United States has called for the prosecution, conviction, and death penalty for federal legislators for reminding military personnel that they must follow the UCMJ. After Democratic legislators, all veterans of intelligence or the United States military released a video reminding members of their duty to disobey illegal orders, Trump came unglued, unleashing a series of posts confirming that he himself is the preeminent, clear, and immediate danger to all Americans and unfit to lead our military. Because Trump wrote, with the emphasis being his own, meaning you're going to hear shouting now, it's called seditious behavior at the highest level. Each one of these traitors to our country should be arrested and put on trial. The words cannot be allowed to stand. We won't have a country anymore. An example must be set. Seditious behavior, punishable by death. Eliciting stochastic violence, Trump then reposted other posts calling the lawmakers traitors and domestic terrorist Democrats. And another reading, all in the uppercase, hang them! George Washington would! Donald John Trump is criminally insane. What are officials waiting for to remove him? The evidence that Trump is unfit to lead and is a metastasizing threat to these United States and all our citizenry is objectively irrefutable. Point. He is abusing the United States military for domestic law enforcement, which has long been illegal under federal law. Point. He has openly turned the Department of Justice into a lawless political weapon. Point. He is sending armed, masked, and insufficiently trained federal agents to attack people in their beds, at schools, and churches, and on the sidewalks, ultimately resulting in the deaths of children and senior citizens. Point. His closest advisors publicly encourage excessive brutality as his war secretary praises lethality, unconstrained by the internationally recognized laws of combat. Point. Advancing his violence toward the mainstream mass media MAGA machine, last week he defended the dismemberment of a journalist critic while that man was alive, to the point where he died after having his penis, digits, and limbs sawed off. Point. He has officially declared groups who oppose him politically to be domestic terrorists in clear violation of our First Amendment. Point. His maladministration has been caught lying about peaceful protesters threatening ICE agents in order to justify ICE brutality, ultimately leading to murder. At the same time, Trump is violating the rule of law at home, transforming our nation into an occupied military zone under Zionist occupation government. His national security blunders have seriously increased the risk of harm from outside forces by, point, sharing a plan of attack through unsecured sources, point, posting juvenile social media rants that gave Iran advance notice to remove their enriched uranium before he bombed, point, accidentally declaring part of Mexico as United States territory now under United States command, effectively invading a foreign territory by declaring its territory de facto under American jurisdiction. Point, alienating NATO, demoralizing Ukraine, and supporting Putin's mass murderous regime in the revanchist and revisionist Russian Empire. Point, declaring victory in the Gaza even as both sides continue attacking each the other. Point, selling our most advanced fighter jets to Saudi Arabia despite national security warnings. These cumulative blunders prove he doesn't care about the long-term or even the short-term risks to national security. Exempli gratiae, Trump's plans to sell F-35 fighter jets to Saudi Arabia ignores consistent warnings from national security officials that he will be letting the communist Chinese empire steal the American military's most advanced technology. Trump either doesn't care or lacks the cognitive capacity to understand that Riyadh, the capital of the House of Saud on the Arabian Peninsula, and Beijing have a formal security partnership. In the Oval Office, Trump told reporters, "We will be doing that. We'll be selling F-35s because the Saudis want to buy them. They've been a great ally." These facts trigger a duty to act, regardless of politics. Federal officials, including Trump's cabinet and members of Congress, all swore an oath
to follow our Constitution and protect these United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Legal tools within their reach include impeachment and removal, congressional oversight, and the power of the purse, and the 25th Amendment. This is not a partisan issue. America is in danger. Federal officials' complicity and failure to act is now a dereliction of duty in deference to a man whose cognition is in question and who still has access to the nuclear codes, with the Ukraine's impossible position putting Ukraine between a cock and a hard case, as they say in prison. Because Russia is willing to keep on fighting in the Ukraine, as the Kremlin sees it, Russia is winning regardless. Putin doesn't need to fight forever, just longer than Ukraine can. Thusly, Ukraine, Europe, and these United States are being warned that Moscow is not desperate for any deal. Trump's Ukraine plan is a messy and potentially dangerous one, the wrong way to peace in Ukraine. Alarmingly for both Ukraine and Europe, the United States is trying to turn the end of the war into a business opportunity. So here's what to think about Trump's Rus-Ukraine peace plan. Don't call this a peace plan. The 28-point plan is a blueprint for Russian victory and Ukrainian capitulation. If the Rus-American plan for Ukraine goes forward, Donald Trump will be remembered as the Neville Chamberlain of the 21st century, as the proposed settlement negotiated by Russia and these United States would only make the world far more dangerous. Let's hope it never comes to fruition. And why does Steve Witkoff keep taking Russia's side? Trump's envoy isn't promising peace. His interventions are helping Vladimir Putin. It was revealed last week that the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin and the United States President Donald Trump have been secretly negotiating a settlement to the war in Ukraine. But this peace plan, if implemented, would encourage Russia to continue waging war in Europe, undermine the international order, and increase the risk of nuclear war. European allies once again find themselves on the sidelines as Ukraine tries to salvage something from a messy and potentially dangerous peace plan. It will fall on Kiev and Brussels, the erstwhile capital of United Europe, to ensure that no negotiated ceasefire leaves the door open to renewed Russian attack. What with America bound for Moscow? Trump having directed his negotiators to Moscow for more talks on Ukraine. Donald Trump dispatched top negotiators to meet with the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin in Moscow, probably next week, to discuss a peace proposal for the Ukraine. The Fourth Estate got direct insight into the American empire's tactics from a transcript that betrayed how Special Envoy Steve Witkoff advised Russia to pitch its plans to Trump. Last week, Russia attacked Ukrainian civilians with more than 1,000 drones, cruise missiles, and rockets. Most of these drones were shot down, but the attack hit 2 apartment buildings in Ternopil, in western Ukraine, killing at least 31 people, including 6 children. Homes, shops, post offices, and power plants across the Ukraine also went up in flames as a result of this barrage. But this war crime, only the latest in Russia's criminal war, was overshadowed by the revelation that the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin and the United States President Donald Trump have been secretly negotiating a settlement. Reportedly authored by United States Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, a multi-billionaire real estate developer and cryptocurrency mogul, and Kirill Dmitriev, the head of Russia's sovereign wealth fund, the 28-point plan is heavily skewed in favor of the Kremlin. Trump has demanded that Ukraine accept this backroom deal on the morrow as dated November 27th. Besides the basic injustice of allowing an aggressor to decide the outcome of the war it started, there are 6 fundamental problems with this peace plan. For starters, it will increase the risk of nuclear war. So put your peace in quotes. It's the peace of the mass grave. If Ukraine is pressured to accept terms that amount to defeat, the rest of the world will conclude that deterring a future invasion by the Russian and Communist Chinese empires or any other nuclear power requires possessing nuclear weapons. The Ukraine's forced capitulation means nuclear proliferation and a significantly higher chance of a second nuclear world war, as World War II was historically the first. That risk reflects the second problem with Trump's peace plan, its implications for an international order that rests on the principle that national borders are inviolable. To be sure, transgressions occur, but they are the exception, not the norm. Endorsing such misbehavior, as Trump is doing by rewarding Russia for invading Ukraine, is so far beyond the pale that it shocks the system. In its current form, the Witkoff-Dmitriev Pact risks creating a world in which invasions and wars become routine. Third, acquiescing to the Kremlin's long-standing demands will undermine regional peace and stability. If the terms of the settlement leave Russia stronger than Ukraine, Putin will be encouraged in every possible way, legal, moral, psychological, and economic, to continue waging war in Europe. Fourth, Trump's plan does not provide credible enforcement mechanisms. Given that the Russian Empire has violated every agreement with Ukraine it has ever made, assurances from the Kremlin that it will not attempt to seize more Ukrainian territory are meaningless. American imperial security guarantees also lack substance, especially under a maladministration that cares little for honesty and fair dealing. The only meaningful deterrent against new Russian aggression is for Ukraine to join NATO, which the proposed settlement expressly forbids. In prioritizing Russia's imperial fantasy over Ukraine's democratic will, Trump's plan avoids the question of reconstruction, the fifth main issue. Peace is more than the temporary absence of hostilities. I am certain that the Russian Empire would accept a ceasefire for days, or maybe even weeks, in exchange for Ukraine's eventual capitulation. But real peace means ensuring that Ukraine retains its sovereignty and can defend itself, join alliances, and, most importantly, rebuild. While the proposed settlement does not provide for any of this, Ukraine's allies have advanced perfectly reasonable and indeed profitable plans for reconstructing the country and attracting foreign investment. The last and perhaps most fundamental problem is process. What we know about history is that securing a durable peace settlement requires involving all concerned parties. Recall that after World War I, the countries regarded as aggressors were shut out of the most critical part of the peace negotiations, a decision that guaranteed the outbreak of a second world war. In this case, the Ukrainians, the victims of aggression, were not consulted in the preparation of the peace plan, which reads as if it were dictated by the Russians and translated by the Americans into English. This fact is not as far-fetched as it sounds, it already being reported that Witkoff, when negotiating with Putin, relies on a Kremlin-supplied translator. The next most important of the concerned parties, Ukraine's European allies, were also caught off guard by Trump's secretive deal-making. If there is to be genuine peace, such that Ukraine is defended and can be rebuilt, these parties must be at the negotiating table. Trump's approach will not work. If important parties are excluded from the peace process, it is impossible to gain a full understanding of the relevant issues and to gather the necessary information. By excluding Ukraine and its European allies from settlement negotiations, Russia and the United States may leave Ukrainians with no choice but to fight. Trump may think he can wash his hands of Ukraine, but the problem will not have been resolved, and most certainly not by ye. Trump's yearning to win a Nobel Peace Prize, one of the most well-known vulnerabilities in the history of international relations, has led to an ill-conceived attempt at a peace settlement that, if implemented, all but guarantees future conflict. As the American imperial maladministration tries to bully Ukraine and its allies into accepting an unjust peace that will never last, we must continue calling for Ukrainians to be heard, respected, and supported. Because today's Ukraine is not 1938 Czechoslovakia, a nation which should never have existed in the first and was created out of sackcloth by President Wilson out of World War I. Yet the 28-point peace plan negotiated between the United States and the revanchist and revisionist Russian Empire and leaked to the mainstream mass media MAGA machine late last week betrays that these United States President Donald Trump considers the Munich deal a precedent. Like Chamberlain, he seems to believe that he can make a deal with the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin about the Ukraine's land and future over the latter's head. But this miscalculation is flawed. It exposes Trump's fundamental misunderstanding of European geopolitique, both Russia's unbroken designs to control the Ukraine and the Ukrainians' continued willingness to fight for their land and independence. At a time when Western commentators are tying themselves in knots, trying to parse the ongoing Ukraine peace discussions, the Russian mainstream mass media machine is suddenly strikingly united in its coverage. There is a common misperception that, like their Soviet forebears, the Russian press simply reproduces some standard party line day in, day out. In fact, there is often surprising pluralism, with different newspapers having their own interests and angles. However, the Kremlin does impose its will when it comes to especially important or sensitive matters, with editors receiving chomniki, informal but authoritative guidance from the dictatorial maladministration on lines to take and topics to avoid. When the press is speaking in one voice, that voice is solely Vladimir Putin's. A day of uncertainty followed when news of the proposed 28-point peace plan for Ukraine first dropped. But now the Russian mainstream mass media machine is back in lockstep, providing a useful insight into what the Kremlin wants to communicate to both foreigners and its own subjects. Details of the Trump maladministration's 28-point plan to end Russia's war in Ukraine were leaked last week, and confusion then reigned all weekend. At the annual Halifax International Security Forum in Canada, several United States senators said United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio had told them the proposal represented Moscow's wish list. On Sunday, before talks between Ukrainian and United States officials began in Geneva, Rubio said the plan was in fact a United States initiative, and later, emerging from the closed-door conversations, said he was very optimistic about reaching an agreement in a very reasonable period of time. As for how long that period of time might be, United States President Donald Trump said tomorrow is the hard deadline for the Ukrainians to reach any agreement. What Ukraine and President Volodymyr Zelensky should do about the proposal is no less clear-cut than the details of the plan itself, judging by the contributions in Foreign Policy magazine's pages. Both Fareed Zakaria and foreign policy columnist Emma Ashford characterize the conflict, now in its fourth year, as a war of attrition. Both would also agree that Ukraine cannot replicate Russia's military strategy and that this asymmetry is compounded by a collapse in external support for Kiev. Zakaria, however, reasons that Trump's deal requires Ukraine to make land concessions, which may well lead Russia to hold out for even more control, writing that this scenario risks Ukraine turning into a client state like Belarus. Ashford, meanwhile, sees Trump's proposal, however flawed, as the only hope of changing an untenable status quo, writing, "Too many of the arguments opposed to negotiations are in essence an argument to stay the course in the hopes that something better turns up. This is not much of a strategy." A tangible sense of despair hangs over Ukraine as it tries to negotiate with the United States on a flawed peace plan with an extremely tight deadline, while European partners scramble just to find a place at the table. Ukraine finds itself in an impossible position, faced with a 28-point plan presented in the form of a United States ultimatum. Kiev must somehow continue cooperating with Washington in order not to lose American imperial support, including shared intelligence data, knowing that it remains unable to adopt basic parts of an agreement that will prove unacceptable at home. Yet leaders there in the Ukraine have no choice but to engage seriously with some of the unpalatable ideas on offer. The very fact of the Ukraine-American talks in Geneva already sends a signal to the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin that the invaded country is willing to engage on several points in a plan that may as well have been co-authored by the invader. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's daily video message to Ukrainians last Friday was reminiscent of one of his first defiant social media posts in February of 2022 when he, surrounded by members of his government outside the presidential palace, repeated a simple phrase, "I am here. We are all here." In his latest rallying call, he referred to the current moment as one of the hardest in his country's history, but simultaneously tried to reassure citizens that he will not compromise Ukraine's sovereignty. The 28-point plan cannot be a basis for any peace, especially as the United States proposal ranges so widely on different issues. As originally drafted, the plan is primarily a Russian wish list, which goes so far as to order NATO to formally rule out future membership of Ukraine. This would effectively give the Russian dictator a veto over the alliance's actions. Many other points are left vague, in particular the ones addressing security commitments. The Europeans have been busy reworking the plan against the backdrop of the ongoing Genève talks, the talks in Geneva, Switzerland, including via a counter-proposal drafted by France, the United Germany, and the United Kingdom. It is unclear to what extent the two processes go hand in hand. European leaders declared it a success that clauses relating to NATO and European security have been removed from the original draft. That avoids, or at least postpones, a standoff within the alliance itself. The original wording in the 28-point plan also casts the American empire in the role of a mediator between NATO and the Russian Empire. Whether this was a carefully chosen phrase or simply sloppy language is impossible to tell, but it clearly signals what everyone has known for a while now. Washington's commitment and role in NATO is shaky. Speculation about this is already inflicting damage. By removing references to NATO, however, the critical issue of security guarantees and the European Union's role in providing them also seems to have been parked. Even with a potential United States backstop, There was nothing in the original 28 points about how and by whom the demilitarized zone would be secured. Without an agreement on this, any plan is meaningless, actually prolonging the conflict. Pay attention to the dates, because the timing matters. Steve Witkoff spoke with Yuri Yushakov, a Russian official, on October 14th. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky held a meeting with President Donald Trump in Washington, District of Columbia, on October 17th. Trump had been hinting that he would offer to sell Tomahawks, long-range cruise missiles, to the Ukrainian army, but he did not. Why not? Perhaps because Yushakov listened to Witkoff's advice and persuaded the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin to call Trump on October 16th. Witkoff, in other words, helped block that sale. And that would make Witkoff responsible for prolonging the war. Let me back up and explain. Witkoff, a former real estate developer, is supposed to be negotiating a peace settlement between Russia and Ukraine. He is, in theory, acting on behalf of the United States, but also on behalf of millions of people who want peace in Ukraine and security in Europe. Yushakov, a former Russian ambassador to these United States, has different interests. Like his boss, he wants the Russian Empire to win the war. A tape of the October 14th conversation has been leaked to Bloomberg. That's how we know Witkoff suggested to Yushakov that Putin call Trump personally. He also offered advice about what Putin should say. The Russian dictator should flatter Trump, of course, which is standard practice for speaking to the American dictator. Compliment him on his great success in Gaza. Congratulate the president on this achievement. After that, Witkoff said, it's going to be a really good call. Then, Witkoff advised, Putin should impress upon Trump this idea. The Russian Federation has always wanted a peace deal. That's my belief. I told the president I believe that. Together, the twain o' they would cook up a peace plan, just like Trump's recent Gaza peace plan. Ushakov gave Putin this advice. Putin followed it. How do we know? Because Putin did, in fact, call Trump on October 16th. That call lasting for more than 12 hours. Trump saying the call was productive and that the 12 leaders would soon meet, potentially in Budapest, which never happened. During his meeting with Zelensky on the following day, he did not offer Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. Instead, he became emotional and angry. In keeping with a long-standing Russian demand, Trump tried to persuade the Ukrainians to give up Ukrainian land in Donetsk province that they currently control, land that the Russians have not been able to conquer after more than a decade of fighting. This is what Putin wants, to obtain Ukrainian territory without fighting for it, to weaken Ukraine, and to abuse any temporary ceasefire as an opportunity to plan the next invasion. Last month, one insider told Politico magazine, with a single phone call, Putin appears to have changed President Trump's mind on Ukraine once again. This was Witkoff's achievement. Working with another Kremlin insider, Kirill Dmitriev, he went on last week to propose the 28-point peace plan that will, if carried out, temporarily stop the fighting but position Russia to invade a weakened Ukraine at a later date. I've spoken on all of this before, but it cannot be repeated often enough. This war will end only when Russia stops fighting. The Russians need to halt the invasion, recognize the sovereignty of Ukraine, and drop their imperial ambitions. Then Ukraine can discuss borders, prisoners, and the fate of tens of thousands of children, mass abducted Ukrainian children, disappearing into the only developed nation on earth where child pornography is legal. But the only way to persuade Russia to stop fighting is to put pressure on Russia. Not Ukraine, Russia! The Ukrainians have already said they will stop fighting and agree to a ceasefire right now on the current lines of conflict. Yet Witkoff is seeking to persuade Trump not to pressure Russia, and we don't really know why. Witkoff has no previous diplomatic experience, so perhaps he is naive. He spent many years in New York real estate at a time when Russians were spending fortunes on property, so perhaps he feels gratitude. Or rather, he's in debt. In hock. And maybe he's helping Russia win because he has the deepest respect for President Putin, as he told Ushakov, and he admires his brutality. Maybe he or others in the White House entourage have business interests tied into Russia, or hope to. In addition to discussing peace, Witkoff has also been, according to the document made public last week, talking with the Russians about American investments in the areas of energy, natural resources, infrastructure, artificial intelligence, data centers, rare earth metal extraction projects in the Arctic. Whatever the reason, Witkoff is prolonging the conflict. He is not promoting peace. His call to Ushakov was not, as Trump said last night, for a normal negotiating tactic. Every time he intervenes, advocating for Putin's positions, he encourages the Russians to think they can get Trump on their side, pull America away from Europe, break up NATO, and win the war. In other words, every time he intervenes on behalf of the Russians, he contributes to the deaths of Ukrainians, the attacks on infrastructure, the ongoing tragedy that affects millions of people. If this were a normal American administration, he would be fired immediately. But nothing about this negotiation or this maladministration is normal at all. Because alarmingly for both Ukraine and Europe, the United States is also trying to turn the end of the war into a business opportunity. Washington is demanding a share of the frozen Russian assets via a complicated investment procedure from which it would reap 50% of the profit. Brussels, the erstwhile capital of United Europe, was edging closer to agreement on a complex plan to take possession of those assets and divert the money to Ukraine. The European Union needs to act fast before the United States maladministration actively derails this process. After the Alaska summit between Trump and Putin, and the fears it provoked as the twain seemed to set to make a bilateral deal, European leaders hastily got together to make their voices heard in the White House. The sad truth is that after that strong show of diplomacy, they got back to their own respective domestic political troubles. How much political willpower currently stands behind the coalition of the willing still remains opaque. Ukraine's European allies have hidden behind the statement that, as a sovereign state, the country has to decide when and how it wants to end the war. This is easier said than done, as they have not put Kiev in any position to make such a choice. Some European leaders are still abusing the same rhetoric now, but it sounds almost cynical when it is so obvious that Ukraine is walking a tightrope that could snap at any moment. A clear majority of Ukrainians still opposes territorial concessions to the Russian Empire. These figures have remained stable for over the last year and a half. Any negotiated outcome must be put to a referendum in Ukraine itself. Agreeing to all of Moscow's demands will therefore be impossible for people who have paid such a high price in this war. Zelensky cannot ignore what the public wants. His approval rating has remained high in recent years, between 50 and 70%, despite the United States maladministration and international mass media intermittently floating fictitious low numbers. Ukrainian citizens have shown themselves capable of simultaneously rallying behind their president when he cometh under international pressure and effectively critiquing his policy mistakes. His summer 2025 attempt to re-centralize anti-corruption institutions was stopped by public protests. Currently, he is struggling to clean up a large corruption scandal involving some of his closest associates. It is self-evident that durable and secure peace for Ukraine cannot be negotiated in a matter of days, certainly not within the next half dozen hours before the morrow breaks the dawn, and that the Native American Holocaust Memorial Day ultimatum cannot hold. The key question is how determined the United States maladministration is to arrive at something Trump can call peace. At best, the 28-point plan has recentered the attention of Europeans on Ukraine, but for the moment they are still on the sidelines. Amidst all the uncertainty, one thing is clear. It will fall upon Ukraine and the European Union to manage the fallout of an ill-conceived anti-peace plan that is not acceptable to ordinary Ukrainians and leaves the door wide open to a renewed attack by the Russian Empire. Here, Elton John gets right what Israel's foreign ministry gets wrong. When the pop star voiced concern about the suffering of some overshadowed by Gaza, he meant it. The same cannot be said for the pro-Israel warriors who point to the Sudan because they can no longer defend the indefensible. Thus, Singapore has sanctioned Israeli settlers. Now, before I get into that, what's this Brendan has sent in the GIF? Oh, that's delightful. Yes, the frog sliding off the couch. Yes, thank you, Brendan. Your moral support, of course, is unbounded. The milk of human kindness flows from your bosom. Now, Singapore's administration, or Singapore's imposition of targeted sanctions on 4 extremist Israeli settlers in the West Bank on Friday, is unlikely to make much difference to them or to the Palestinians they torment. But given the close historical relationship between Israel and Singapore, the City of Lions, it is an important sign of how isolated Israel is becoming on the world stage. The sanctions target 4 Israeli settlers for egregious acts of extremist violence against Palestinians in the West Bank. The men will be banned from doing business with Singaporean financial institutions and from traveling to Singapore. All of them are affiliated with the violent extremist organization Hilltop Youth, which organizes illegal settlement outposts in the occupied West Bank and abuses them as bases from which to attack Palestinian villages. The 4 men have already been sanctioned by the European Union, and Hilltop Youth was previously sanctioned by the United States for violent acts including killings and mass arson, although that designation was reversed by President Donald Trump in January. Singapore's announcement comes amid a wave of settler violence in the West Bank that has garnered widespread condemnation, even by senior Israeli officials who typically ignore or downplay such incidents. As I noted yesterday, last week, the United Nations documented at least 260 violent settler attacks last month, the highest number since 2006. According to Israeli mass media, the perpetrators have not faced legal challenges, or certainly no legal consequences, except in the most extreme cases. When Singaporean Foreign Minister Vivian Balakrishnan announced the new policy of targeted sanctions against far-right settlers in September, He also noted the country would reconsider its position on whether to recognize the State of Palestine. But the government stopped short of that step in its Friday announcement, saying only that it would recognize Palestine at the appropriate time. For now, a social media post on the Israeli Foreign Ministry's accounts on Wednesday points to a burgeoning public relations approach among the country's defenders that reeks of desperation. It shows a mobile phone with Gaza as a favorite contact and a list of missed calls from other troubled parts of the world: the Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Afghanistan, and Yemen. The caption reading, "While the UN is fixated on Gaza to the point of obsession, the rest of the planet Earth would also appreciate some attention." The foreign ministry is not alone in embracing this strategy, particularly as growing violence in the Sudan breaks into the Western news cycle, giving Israel's online defenders the perfect hook for their whataboutism. Pro-Israel advocates are tallying up the international reaction to the climbing death toll in the Darfur, while Hezbollah influencers are pushing the hashtag "No Jews, No News." This week, one pro-Israel influencer said, "There are literally thousands of people being killed in Sudan on a daily basis. And yet," he says, "the celebrity left and all the liberals remain silent. There are no pins and t-shirts for Darfur. When there are no Jews involved, there are no trending hashtags." The European Jewish Congress, also on Wednesday, shared the speech of a European Union Parliament member. It said, "Highlights a stark truth. The world's outrage has become selective, pointing to those who have condemned Israel while remaining silent about far greater atrocities elsewhere, including the Sudan." Today's messaging is not new, though in the past it has been far more frequently paired with a full-throated defense of Israel's misbehavior. These days, especially amid a ceasefire in Gaza and all living hostages returned home, there are fewer attempts to make a real case for the Strip's current state. Why? Because conjuring up a rationale to justify the level of suffering there is close to impossible. Simply pointing out that Darfur exists as well as Gaza is a clear signal to the world that Israel has given up trying to make its own case. There was, however, one celebrity who answered the Hezbollah's pleas and joined the fight against selective outrage. Elton John, in an interview with Variety magazine published this week, expressed his frustration that the fight against AIDS was overshadowed by crises like the Gaza war, or rather, the Gaza side. And of the Gaza genocide, he said, "There's a big war being settled, but there's another war with people who are suffering from HIV and AIDS," and that he has big beef. Not referring to his dick, I suppose, but complaint, because while there might be peace for Palestinians, there are crimes against millions of other people that are happening because of governments and stigma and hate. Oh, Jesus, what's he trying to tell me now? Here we are. He really is the worst scripted. He says, doesn't that prove that they have set themselves up? Yes, things only become mainstream by their baraka, their blessing. Yes, absolutely. Good call, Brain. And you're always welcome to interject vocally. Now, Elton John's frustration with the one-track attention on Gaza stems from a place of concern for the suffering of other people, and a cause he has dedicated much of his own life to for obvious reasons. The same cannot be said for Israel's foreign ministry and popular Hezbollists, who are pointing out the Sudan because they can no longer defend the indefensible. This brings us to MBS's vanity projects, which are bleeding Saudi Arabia dry. Saudi Arabia can't afford Mohammed bin Salman's follies, let alone the investment into these United States he promised Donald Trump. The Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's triumphant visit to the White House last week included an eye-popping number, $1 trillion United States dollars. That was how much money Trump boasted the Crown Prince will invest in America under his own watch. Trump hoping he can keep repeating the figure, adding to his ever-growing tally of imaginary trillions in foreign investment into these United States, despite the growing numbers, well, the numbers being a fictitious collection of vague pledges. But for MBS, even if the $1 trillion number is mostly a public relations stunt for an audience of one, the promise of spending anything close to that amount on investments in the United States comes at an awkward time back home in Saudi Arabia itself, when his mega projects of vanity are bleeding his own country dry. That's quite an accomplishment for a petropower with an unlimited amount of fuel and funneled money therefrom. So then he says, not coming on until the cryptid episode. Come on, man. That's just plain evil. Let me respond to that here with the proper crying trail of tears emoji. There we are. Now, on this side of the Atlantic, Iran needs the Maduro regime in Venezuela. The aircraft carrier Gerald R. Ford and 3 warships have been dispatched to the Caribbean, where they are joining a dozen Navy warships already off the coast of Venezuela, massacring innocents in boats, in an unprecedented show of military force and genocidal massacre. President Trump and his maladministration are taking aim at the maladministration of Nicolás Maduro over his alleged role in the drug trade, which presents a national security threat to these United States. It's clear that if the American empire succeeds in destabilizing and displacing El Presidente Maduro's regime, it would be a blow to the region's drug traffickers. What is less known is that it would also hit Iran. Venezuela, having long served as a launch pad for Iranian operations to establish a foothold in South America. The IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, its Quds Force, and Iran's intelligence ministry have all had a presence in Venezuela. The Quds Force has used, or rather abused, economic delegations to Venezuela and other countries around the world as a cover for terrorist activity. According to reports, in September of 2020, an Iranian delegation landed in Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, it was comprised of businessmen who acted as Quds Force facilitators. The Quds Force's Unit 840, which plots terror schemes abroad, has historically been active in Venezuela. Evidence suggesting the son of a senior intelligence advisor close to the supreme leader was at one point responsible for Unit 840's Latin American operations. He has traveled to Venezuela to nurture these illicit networks, his presence showing the importance of Caracas for Iran. Another Quds Force group, Unit 11,000, or 11000, was recently implicated in a plan to assassinate Israel's ambassador to Mexico. Critically, a Unit 11,000 operative who spearheaded the plot operated out of Iran's embassy in Caracas. This is a strategy Tehran has employed elsewhere, particularly Europe, where IRGC Quds Force and intelligence agents are given diplomatic cover and abuse of Iran's embassies worldwide as a staging ground for assassinations, bombings, and surveillance. Now, here we got another incoming. I met up with some people who had cute girl icons offline, and all 4 of us were old men. I will never forgive Elon Musk. Damn, that's fucking funny. Yes, that's okay, it's like all I can do is giggle at that one. And okay, back to task at hand, and of course checking our numbers, which are good. Okay. Now, another arm of the Iranian state, its intelligence ministry, also works out of Venezuela. Mahid or Mahid Dastyani Ferahani, who is an Iranian intelligence officer, has launched operations to harm American citizens in retaliation for the killing of the late IRGC Quds Force commander Qasim Soleimani. Farahani is wanted by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and its notice indicates he has ties to Venezuela. It's the same for Mohammed Mahdi Kanpur Ardestani, another Iranian intelligence ministry officer who has worked out of Venezuela. In a 2021 indictment concerning a plot to kidnap Iranian-American journalist Masih Alinejad from New York, Iranian operatives researched seizing her and transferring her to Venezuela by sea. The Quds Force has also abused Venezuela to fund its campaigns, sending gold from Caracas to generate income in exchange for Iranian oil. In 2024, the United States Justice Department successfully seized a former Iranian-owned Boeing aircraft, it having been transferred from the Quds Force-affiliated Mahan Air to Venezuelan cargo airlines, its crew including former IRGC commanders. Iran's proxy Hezbollah has also abused Venezuela as a hub to support its own terrorism, drug trafficking, and business interests. Exempli gratiae, Ghazi Nasr al-Din, whom the United States Treasury Department sanctioned in 2008, doubled as charge d'affaires at the Venezuelan embassy in Suraya and director for political aspects of its embassy in Lebanon. At the same time, he facilitated travel for Hezbollah operatives and raised funds in Venezuela for the terrorist organization. A former member of the Venezuelan National Assembly and Maduro ally, Adel al-Zabayar, was indicted in 2020 with the United States government alleging he served as a go-between in recruiting terrorists from Hezbollah and Hamas to carry out terror attacks on these United States. Likewise, Iran's defense ministry has maintained its own pipeline in Venezuela. Quds Aviation Industries, which is a defense ministry subsidiary, has exported drones to Caracas, including the Mohajer 2. The defense ministry also manages an oil venture with Venezuela to fund defense projects, according to the United States Treasury. In 2023, the United States government sanctioned Iran's then defense attaché in Caracas for facilitating such deals. Public reports also suggest Iran has developed a drone development base at El Libertador, I think it's El Libertador Air Base, where it trains Venezuelan military personnel. As the Trump maladministration has intensified its pressure campaign against Caracas in recent months, Venezuela has asked Iran for passive detection equipment, GPS scramblers, and almost certainly drones with a 1,000-kilometer range, according to the Washington Post. Over the years, Maduro has reportedly sought missiles from Iran as well. The possibility of this triggered a crisis for the Biden misadministration in the summer of 2021 after Iranian warships headed for the region. If Maduro is ousted, Iran stands to lose many of its assets in Venezuela. Venezuela, much like Suraya under the Assad regime, helps further Iranian interests across the region: military, terror, economic, and political. At a time when Tehran and its proxies across the Middle East have been weakened after the war with Israel, the loss of Maduro would be another blow to the Iranian regime. This is why Russian propaganda is spreading in Mexico. Russia's propaganda is finding an audience in Latin America. Latin America is increasingly being targeted by Russia's influence campaigns, which are finding receptive audiences. According to a 2024 cable written by American diplomats and recovered by the New York Times, the revanchist and revisionist Russian Empire has scaled up its efforts to spread propaganda in Mexico, aiming to create a rupture between the United States and our largest trading partner. Sourced cable relaying that the Spanish language services of the Russian-funded media outlets RT and Sputnik have dramatically expanded their presence in Mexico in recent years, thanks to sympathetic abettors in then-President Andrés Manuel López Obrador's misadministration, which are causing riots to erupt under the administration of La Presidentress today. The Times also cited a new report from the Alliance for Securing Democracy, a counter-propaganda initiative of the United German Marshall Fund of the United States, which details how the website of one of Mexico's oldest clubs for journalists has become a conduit for pro-Kremlin and anti-Western propaganda, laundering almost two-thirds of its content since April 2025 from RT en Español, Sputnik Mundo, and the Cuban state-run Prensa Latina. In a March 2024 World Politics Review briefing, or WPR debriefing, Brenda Estefan and David Agren detailed how Russian propaganda is growing its reach, not just in Mexico, but across Latin America. Estefan and Agren writing that Russian propaganda has, in their words, found a receptive audience in much of the region due to a variety of factors that make public opinion vulnerable to the Kremlin narrative. These include insular journalistic cultures, a general distrust for traditional media outlets, and long-standing popular suspicion of the United States for its history of political meddling in Latin America. Now, all of this is exemplified, of course, by everything going on in Mexico with the riots today. Understand this much. How would I express it? There's it's something that it's President Sheinbaum. It really exposes her vulnerabilities. And the protests in Mexico reveal that. But these are the riot armies of Russia on our shores, on the shores of the Western Hemisphere. So I want everyone to appreciate that in that context, that we've got to take it to heart that the American hemisphere is our hemisphere, and that the vulnerabilities of La Presidente Sheinbaum only expose our own. Now, in terms of Europe, that had colonized Mexico at one point in history, the Dutch military has opened fire on drones, because Europe can no longer ignore that it's under Russian attack. Russia's drone incursions have made European societies aware they are being targeted, which is the first step to responding appropriately. The Dutch military on Friday fired at drones that were sighted over Volkel Aerobase in the country's east, but were not successful in shooting down the unmanned aerocraft. It is just the latest in a series of drone sightings over military sites and civilian aeroports across Europe in recent weeks, including incidents in Die Neue Vereinigte Deutschland, the new United Germany, Poland, Romania, Estonia, and Denmark. While it's not always easy to say where drones originate, some recent violations of European aerospace have been clearly attributable to Russia and have thus highlighted the issue across Europe. That attention is needed because Europe must build up its drone defenses so that it can move from wanting to ignore them to putting them in a position where it has little to fear therefrom. While there be no panacea for stopping drones altogether, a system of layered defenses can achieve good results. But this brings us to our Dragon debriefing. The Nexperia chip crisis is the death knell of globalization. The dispute with the Communist Chinese Empire of the East over Nexperia represents another nail in the coffin of Europe's dedication to free trade and global integration. During the escalation of the Sino-American trade war this fall, perhaps no story captured the drama and unintended consequences of great power rivalry as clearly as that of Nexperia, a Commu-Chinese-owned Dutch company that is one of the largest and most efficient producers of legacy semiconductors. The production of the chips is highly globalized, with wafers produced by Nexperia in United Germany or the United Kingdom and then shipped to Dongguan in southern Zhonghua or China for final assembly and packaging. But when the company got caught up in the Sino-American rivalry, it showed how the era of global economic integration that peaked in the 2010s is now ending. This brings us to decoding the surprise Xi-Trump phone call, which in turn exposes Zhonghua Renmin Gonghegua's, or the People's Republics of China's, bad history. The Communist Chinese dictator Xi Jinping and the United States dictator Donald Trump had an unexpected phone call on Monday to kick off our work week, reaffirming, according to the Chi-Com readout, a successful meeting in Busan, South Korea, last month. In his Truth Social post, Trump said that the twain of they talked mostly about trade and agreed to reciprocal visits, with him going to Beijing in April and Xi Jinping visiting Washington later next year. But what's most interesting here is the treatment of my Taiwan. Hong Zhonghua, or Red China, didn't mention it in the readout of the Busan meeting, and Trump said it wasn't discussed. This time, however, the Chi-Com side said Xi Jinping restated Red China's principled position on my Taiwan and emphasized that my Taiwan's return to China is an integral part of the post-war international order. These days, one doesn't have to look too far to find real-world examples of William Faulkner's famous line, "The past is never dead. It's not even past." Indeed, the ghosts of history are very much alive in recent tensions between Communist China on the Asian mainland and the Empire of Japan, sparked by an off-the-cuff comment by the Japanese Prime Ministress Sanae Takaichi earlier this month that a Chi-Com attempt to take my Taiwan by force would threaten Dainippon, or Greater Japan's, survival, and thus would necessitate military intervention. Beijing responded with a diplomatic and economic pressure campaign, writing strongly worded letters to the United Nations, banning Japanese seafood imports, and telling citizens to avoid traveling to its island neighbor, among other measures. The situation has blown up into what experts are now calling the most serious crises in a decade between Asia's top 20 economies. As part of its efforts to persuade domestic and global audiences of the righteousness of its cause, the monolithic Communist Chinese superstate has made several historical appeals dating back to World War II. Yet many of them rely on selective or tendentious readings of history. Take the grievance-filled 3-page letter that the Chinese ambassador to the United Nations wrote. Fu Kong, he sent last Friday to Secretary General Antonio Guterres, which calls Takaichi's remarks an open provocation to the more than 1.4 billion Chinese people and to the peoples of other Asian countries that once suffered from Japanese aggression. I'm having fun translating what he said. His letter is you're talking about a sitting member on the United Nations Security Council writing a letter to a figurehead. and he's bitching about World War II. Fu Kong argues that just as Imperial Japan used self-defense to justify its World War II-era colonial aggression, Takeichi's language on My Taiwan raises the specter of Japanese militarism. Of course, it is not wrong to say that the Imperial Japanese Empire used self-defense to justify its invasion of mainland China, including through the 1931 MEMqədy incident, a false flag attack on a Japanese railway that was transparently staged by Japanese forces and later used as a pretext for a full-blown invasion of northeast China. But this is far from unique to Japan, as countries throughout history have cited the need to protect their own territory or interests to justify military aggression. And left out in Fu's letter is the critical context, a critical omission, that the state of Japan at the time was a self-described empire, as opposed to the constitutional monarchy of today. The communist Chinese dictator Xi Jinping made further historical references yesterday when he took the rare step of initiating a call to United States President Donald Trump. According to Beijing's readout of the conversation, Xi Jinping noted that Communist China on the Asian mainland and the United States fought shoulder to shoulder against fascism and militarism, and that, given what is going on, it is even more important for us to jointly safeguard the victory of World War II. That statement elides much nuance. America's main partner during World War II was not the People's Liberation Army of the Soviet-supported communists, but the Kuomintang's National Revolutionary Army led by Chiang Kai-shek, the man who became the dictator of My Taiwan. Xi Jinping's argument on the call that Taiwan's return to China is an integral part of the post-war international order is also specious, given the Chinese Communist Party has never controlled My Taiwan. It is unclear if Trump, who rarely takes any interest in history, will be swayed by Xi Jinping's arguments. His own readout of the call, posted to social media, did not even mention My Taiwan. But he was clearly intrigued enough to phone Takeichi soon thereafter to brief her on the conversation with Xi Jinping and the current state of Japan-American relations. Takeichi, for her part, played up her friendship with Trump, pointing out to reporters that he had told her to call me anytime, baby. Now, at the end of the day, no one, including Trump, should be fooled by the Communist Chinese Empire's selective abuse of history into service of its claims on My Taiwan. The past is indeed not even past, but in the wrong hands, its obfuscation becometh a powerful weapon. Ergo, rapid geopolitical change requires an urgent debate in the Empire of Japan, bringing us to the inevitable logic of an open Japanese nuclear weapons deterrence. Now, I've always articulated in great detail the fact that Japan maintains a nuclear arsenal. But it is now no longer a question of if, but when, the Greater Japanese Empire and South Korea will acquire independent nuclear deterrence within the United States alliance system, as opposed to maintaining them sub rosa. That system would otherwise loosen in East Asia as the United States' extended deterrence, the so-called nuclear umbrella, erodes due to Red China's and North Korea's acquisition of second strike capabilities targeting the United States mainland. To acquire open deterrence via nuclear weapons will be a politically difficult and highly fraught decision, much more so for Dai Nippon Teikoku, or the Empire of Greater Japan, than for South Korea, where opinion polls already show considerable support. But regardless of public opinion, changes in the global and regional strategic environment are inexorably pushing both countries in this direction. Resisting the logic of these changes would only lead to very grave geopolitical consequences. In democracies, security policy must rest on a foundation of public support. Such a foundation does not yet exist in Dai-Nippon, or Greater Japan, on the nuclear question. It is, therefore, imperative that the Imperial Japanese corporal shogunal superstate engage in an open, realistic, and timely public debate to build a national consensus on this vital issue. The Japanese Prime Ministress Sanae Takeichi took a first step in this direction earlier this month when she announced that her government is considering a review of Fortress Japan's long-standing policy on openly hosting nuclear weapons. Now for that, we can all give us thanks. There's our Thanksgiving for you. And I've earned my work for tonight. Well, earned my pay for tonight. I've worked enough to earn your paying myself. So I'll be counting on your fiscal support. With that, if our man Aristides is still with us, feel free to say good morning. I'll be taking off for Thanksgiving. Yeah, good God. I actually used the term. Okay, I take that back.
All right.
No Thanksgiving. No Thanksgiving. Only thanks to our supporters. Right, Ari?
Right.
Right.
Yes. Yes, that is the real way to show thanks, with cold, hard cash, right?
Yeah. Thanks, my man.
Yeah. Let me get that link, the
Bless you.
PayPal link in the chat one more time.
Thank
What
you.
time is it? Wow, it's only midnight here, but that's okay. Said you'd be taking off early.
Yes, that's right.
Yep. There's the PayPal link.
Okay.
Please support Douglas so he can continue to bring you these transmissions that are unique in all the world for sure.
Thank you. Bless you. And,
Yeah, there's a lot of very interesting geopolitical info there.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that profoundly, and love you dearly, my dear friend Aristides. You're among the best of men. I'm proud to have you stand beside me, and by all means, everyone, this would not be possible without Ari. And okay, on that happy note, Ari, hopefully we'll talk sometime when I return on. Likely it's going to be Sunday. Might have a chance to talk to you before then, but yeah, hopefully we'll connect then before transmission. And,
yeah, let me know when you're around.
Good, excellent.
Yeah.
All right then, and all that being said, thanks to everyone. Kisses to all the ladies out there. Hugs to all the gentlemen, and a blessed night to us all. Enjoy time with your loved ones, and if you cannot, remember we are your extended electronic family. And just know that if you're supporting us morally or fiscally, we do care. And we know there's a lot of lonely people out there. So, for God's sake, treat yourself well, be at peace with yourself, and just learn to enjoy your time, whether it's by yourself or with someone else. It's worth enjoying, and we're all together in spirit. So, by all means, be good to yourself and be kind to yourself. And to others, for that regard, except, of course, the assholes out there who have been trying to suppress myself for, what has it been, 20 years now that I've been a public informant? That's incredible. All right. Well, with all of that, the Year of the Fire Horse is coming out, and that's a time of tumultuous change. I suppose I'll be reborn like a phoenix. The problem is, I'll have to go through the flames. At any rate, with that, we're ending stream. Join us on Sunday night. We'll be back. Same time, same place. Okay. Triple reduction.